Could I speak to Mr. Hussain, please?
Yes, speaking.
Hello, Mr. Hussain. My name is Jake. I'm calling from the Legal Ombudsman.
Oh, hi, Jake.
Hello, Mr. Hussain. Just before I go on, obviously we've spoken previously before, just so I can cover our security, can I just ask you just to confirm your date of birth, your postcode, and your email address for me, please?
Yes, my date of birth is 22nd of the 2nd, 77. Postcode is Bravo Delta 2 4 Romeo Tango. And, yep. What was the other thing?
Just to have your postcode as well. No, not your postcode, your email address as well, please.
It's fatahbegum@gmail.com.
Brilliant. So today was to obviously contact you as per the letter that I sent out to you regarding the additional parts to the service complaint that you've brought up. Also, just to obviously advise that you have sent an email for me to look over the Ombudsman's letter to yourself, and also an email that was dated the 4th of May, which was sent to Sean and Paul McFadden as well. Something that you would like to discuss.
Yes.
Which part would you like to go over first?
Well, I would like to go over, first of all, just to stay focused on what you came back to me on, so I can dismiss, because obviously there was only two parts you were looking into. I think one of those was in relation to a pre-arranged call with Miss John Jeffries back in April, I think, or something, and she had failed to attend, and we had some confusion regarding the dates, and I corrected myself, and you chose to look into this, and obviously you've looked into it now, and I believe your findings are that you cannot find what I'm saying, and so therefore you've not upheld this complaint. Is that correct?
Yes, so from reviewing the evidence, as explained in the letter, on the 31st of August, obviously emails were sent advising that she was awaiting response from a service provider due by 7th of April. She said in the email that once she had received this information, she will contact you to obviously arrange a date and a time to discuss. I haven't been able to find any evidence which suggests that a call would be planned for the 10th of April.
Okay.
Contact you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think this is I'm going to concede this point with yourself. Simply because first of all, I don't think it's a very serious point if she's made arrangements and she's not looked into it. And second of all, if you can't find the evidence, my understanding at the top of my head was that there was some confusion regarding the dates. Particularly, I can recall that I expected a call and I didn't receive it, hence why I had subsequently sent the email. But irrespective, I mean, that's not something that I want to be pursuing any further. It's simply because I don't think it has any gravitas or advantages me in any respect, and I don't think, and ultimately the net outcome would be that if Miss Jeffries was found to have or misled or was wrong in this regard, then obviously the natural outcome would be for her to simply acknowledge this and just be conscious of it next time. So I'm quite happy to concede that matter does not need to be escalated any further.
Writing this down, Mr. Hussain, making sure to note this. Okay. So just to confirm, you don't want this being escalated.
Yeah. Yes. It's not something that I am agreeing with your findings on. It's just something that I feel that it's not highly pertinent to my objectives. And simply because it could have been simply down to a simple error, even if it was upheld, it would have been down to a simple error, and we all make errors. So that's one of the reasons that I don't think I don't need to press home this point.
Okay. Would you like to go to then? Which point would you like to go into?
Okay,
next?
so the next thing I would like to go into, which I do think is a very more pressing and more valuable point is which was the second findings, which was in relation to the, if you could just remind me, it was in relation to extension of time, and not advising me or informing me. Now, can you just briefly tell me what your findings were in relation to this?
Yeah. So reviewing the call made on the 6th of June between yourself and Sean Jeffries, I found out you requested the timescale for the extension given to the service provider to give their evidence. During the call, Sean had yet to give you a timescale, and in the case of providing reasonable customer service, there was no reason as to why Sean would not provide you with the information you had requested. So on this case, we've upheld your points on your service complaint, because we do believe that she still should have been able to give you the timescale from what you provided to what's been provided to the service provider. It's open information which can be shared. Obviously, you've requested it. There's been no harm data breaching to kind of like go over to fact of X, Y, and Z. Data has been given to the service provider for them to send over the information, which could have and maybe helped extinguish what had already been a kind of tried rapport and communication between both of you. And I think at that time, listening to the call and on the various of the service complaints, I don't see there is any reason as to why Sean couldn't have given you that information when you would requested it.
Okay, so thank you for upholding that, but it still does not answer the pertinent questions that I've had. It's like you found that there's no reason for her not to have given the information, but I still fail to establish why she did not give me the information when I had requested it.
Yeah, and this is the point we've addressed with Sean, which she's currently on sick leave at the moment, so it is something which I'm going to be we will be addressing and getting to the back of it, because that's what I mean. There is no reason as to why she didn't give that information, and this is what's going to be addressed as mentioned. Regarding obviously areas of development, to make sure we can get to the bottom of this.
Okay, all right.
If that is something that you would like to get the information from, or
well, I mean, the thing,
reason as to why, I'll be quite happy to.
Yeah, I mean,
get that as well.
I would, yes. I mean, obviously, this is, and the reason is because after so you reviewed the call, and you can see that I was quite insistent on getting this information, and she was simply refusing to give me this information. You've concluded that she should have given the information. I am still waiting to understand why she did not give that information. And in the absence of, being provided with that information, I obviously have a very good understanding and in a position to conjecture why she didn't give me that information, and which I will shortly touch upon. But reviewing not just the call and the correspondence, you can see that the situation was one where Miss Jeffries had made an evidence request back, I believe, at the end of April, and required the evidence to be presented by both parties by sometime in May. Sometime in May, I think the start of May, and hence why on the 5th of May, I believe, I proceeded to present that evidence. It's in that call that Miss Jeffries made me aware that she's given an extension of time, I think until the 25th of May. And then subsequently, as you can see from my correspondence, it's something that I've been it's something that I've been very much ardent upon. And then obviously she's made me aware of the fact that on the 11th that she will be discontinuing this investigation. Having accepted this information, much to my objection, I still continue to press upon her that, okay, well, if it is at that stage on the 11th, I believe, that when she's made me aware of this, I was then in the conversation with her, trying to negotiate with her when I should be making the subject access request, because obviously my purposes were to get a response from them, and their evidence response, which, as you can appreciate, you've asked both parties to give evidence. I presented my evidence, even though it's not been accepted, or even though it's like whatever complications there are. I have complied with your request. The other party haven't. They've quite rightly asked for, or reasonably asked for, an extension, which Miss Jeffries has concurred with. So that's been gone on to the 25th. When I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the 6th of June, I simply said, she said, I've given them a further extension. But she's failed to tell me what date of that extension is. Now, can you tell me, through reviewing the correspondence and everything, what after the 25th, what date did that get reset at? Or did it get reset, or was a further extension provided? Because obviously this is a critical aspect here, because this simple aspect, although it may seem not inconsequential at this moment in time to somebody who's reviewing this, I would argue that the reason Miss Jeffries could not give me a date of when the extension of time was is because she had not given the time extension. There was no time extension given, because the reality was that Miss Jeffries was of the opinion, preemptively may I add, that because she's ended the investigation, or made a referral to end the investigation, there would be no need for her to, have a definitive date, because as you can appreciate, if the other party have requested a time extension on the 5th of May to the 25th of May, then no doubt, if they have not complied, and they would have been made aware of the intentions of Ms. Jeffries to end the investigation, but they would not have received an outcome. So there is nothing stopping, the investigation. The question of the outcome of the Ombudsman's decision is not known until towards the end of July, 26th of July, I believe. So at this stage, let's just say, for argument's sake, and as you know, the Ombudsman has chosen to agree with Miss Jeffries, which is a subject I'll be coming on to, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that the Ombudsman had decided that we're going to continue with this investigation. Then let's just say, for argument's sake, that was a decision which obviously nobody should have known about. But where would that leave this evidence disclosure request? Can I confirm today that has the disclosure been made, or what was the date set at?
The date set to the for the service provider to find the evidence.
Yes.
To provide the evidence for you.
Yes.
Just getting the information regarding the request date, because what I would be looking for is just to advise if there was a request for a suspension on the case. Now, given basically looking for suspension requests, if you just give me a few moments.
Sorry, when you say suspension request, is that when Miss Jeffries made the request to the Ombudsman to suspend the investigation?
No, suspension request would be given from a party who would refer to maybe needing more time. So, for example, as you've mentioned,
I believe the first suspension request was made by the solicitors firm on the 5th of May, because Miss Jeffries had confirmed to me at that date that she was executing her discretion to allow the suspension request from the solicitors. Mm-hmm. So can you just look to see if that's correct? I believe it was just we spoke.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm looking right now for you.
Sure.
Okay, bear with me. I do apologise about the wait.
No. Take your time.
Information.
Yeah, take your time.
So if I look on here, I'm just tracking the information back.
Yeah, sure.
So it comes in from the 5th of May.
Sorry, I think we spoke on the 4th of May. Just my correction, but you will see that Miss
4th of May.
Yeah, the last time I think we spoke with Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May when she had informed me that a suspension request has been made by the other party. So that's when I became aware of it when we spoke on the 4th of May. And so it would have no doubt been prior to that. So, obviously she's corresponded to us through written correspondence making a disclosure request. That was through both parties.
Yeah.
And I believe that she had requested this by the 5th of May, or the dates just around the start of May, and hence why I had arranged to speak to her on the 4th of May.
Mm-hmm. Right then. So from what I can see from here, I'm just making sure that there wasn't a suspension request put in place, but I'm just trying to find out if there was a correspondence from the service provider to speak to Sean to see if they can arrange an extension.
Yes.
So I'm just going to see if there was a correspondence
given
what the extension was going to be.
Yes.
Again, I do apologise about the wait. It's just observing this information that I actually need to go through.
No, just take your time. There's no pressure. Obviously, we need to get this information correct. So, if you can just verify whether the extension was requested.
Mm-hmm. So I can see that evidence came in on 23rd of May, or correspondence from the service provider came on the 25th of May. Now, I'm just trying to see what was the communication to provide it for that date.
You're confirming that the service provider contacted yourselves on the 25th of May.
23rd, sent an email on the 23rd of May to Sean.
Okay, 23rd. But what was their previous email to Sean?
Right, so previous... Right, so there was a previous email sent to them on the 15th of May to get back to them.
No, sorry.
Regarding...
Sorry.
Say that again.
sorry to interrupt you there. What I'm trying to state is that what was the last email from the service provider prior to the 4th of May? Because obviously that would be the email informing Miss Jeffries that they were requesting an extension of time, because she had informed me in my call on the 4th of May that she is agreeing to the time extension.
So I'm just getting that now. It was on the 4th of May that the service provider got in touch with her to advise that they were unable to meet the deadline.
I see. Okay. That seems to be.
They had agreed. They had asked for a response by the asked to respond by the 9th of June. That's what their reply were, to go for the extra data that they needed. They requested for the 9th of June, from which.
Sorry, Jake. Can I just stop you there? You're saying that the service provider contacted Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May. Yes. Can I ask what time that was? What?
4th of.
Yeah. What time on the 4th?
So the correspondence was sent. Correspondence was received on the at about 1 o'clock, 1:30 on the 4th of May. Now, during the time the correspondence going through and going on the system, it could be a completely different time from when it was sent to when it was received and put onto the CRM.
I understand this. So you're saying that the service provider had sent in an email, requested an email, and that was around about 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on the 4th of May.
Yeah, okay,
around
right.
1 o'clock.
The reason I asked for the time is because they had sent an email to Miss Jeffries at 1 o'clock, because I'm just looking at my records, and I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the very same day at 3 o'clock. So a couple of hours later, obviously I've spoken to her, and it is at that time that he's made me aware that they've asked for an extension of time. Now, after reviewing the correspondence from the service provider, which you have in front of you, you're saying that the service provider had requested until the 9th of June as an extension of time.
Had requested up to the 9th of June as an extension of time to provide the information.
Okay, so if they've made that request, that does not have to be the 9th. What has Miss Jeffries agreed to that?
From what I can see from the correspondence, it was confirmed that she got back to the firm on the 15th of May and advised them that she would still expect for evidence to be due on the 9th of June.
Okay, all right. So,
but they sent it on the 25th of May. information.
Well, all right. This does not obviously this does not make sense to me now. Because what you're confirming after reading the correspondence is that at 1 o'clock on the 4th of May, which was a Thursday, Miss Jeffries received an email from the service provider asking for an extension of time. And as a result of that request for an extension of time, the service provider had said, well, we need to go ask for an extension of up to, so that was the 4th of May, which was a Thursday. I'm just looking 1, 2, 3, 4, nearly 5 weeks. So they had requested a response for 5 weeks. Now, why I am concerned is that because after you're reviewing the records now, they've made a service request on the 4th, basically an extension of time at 1 o'clock on the 4th of May. I've just informed you that me and Miss Jeffries had a conversation of 2 hours later, basically at 3 o'clock, a pre-arranged call, and that was simply to discuss the submission of evidence, because obviously I think that was the deadline date. That's why we were speaking. I can't confirm if that was the deadline day or the following day, but irrespective, Miss Jeffries did not respond or confirm that until you're saying the 15th of May. That they could have that extension.
15th of May.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And that extension of time was until the 9th of June.
So basically, she responded on the 15th of May to advise the service provider that they would basically advise them that that evidence would still be needed to be due on the 9th of May, as suggested in the case.
Okay. So that was an email that she sent on the 15th. Yes.
Yeah, and that was obviously regarding the fact that there was the case of obviously speaking to the Ombudsman regarding the when the dismissal was first put into place, but she still advised the SP that it would still need to be sending evidence through the 9th of May. So even though that there was the talk about the possibility of a dismissal, she was still requesting for the SP to send in the evidence.
Okay, so on the 15th of May, she had still stated to the service provider that in response to your email of the 4th of May, I'm agreeing to your extension of time until the 9th of June. And then you're telling me that the service provider then contacted Miss Jeffries on the 23rd of May?
It was on the... So this was a response back from the SP giving information regarding which she needed the evidence.
So what date was that?
That was on the 25th of May.
Or on the 25th of May, did they comply with the evidence request?
They got back to her with regards to evidence and information as required. Now, as I mentioned before, I wouldn't know the ins and outs of what was actually needed because I can't go into detail regarding the case itself. What I can see, there was correspondence back to Sean regarding information addressing certain details with regards to the case.
Okay, all right. So you can't look into the case file at this moment in time, but what you're saying is that do you believe that the service provider had complied with the evidence request on the 25th of May?
So I can see that the service provider has complied with giving information regarding the request which was needed from Sean on the 25th of May.
But if that was the case, after having reviewed the telephone conversations between myself and Miss Jeffries on the 6th of June, which you have confirmed to me that you have done so, so when I asked Miss Jeffries, has the other party responded with the evidence that you requested, she had said no.
So So she had said no on that call, so this is what I need to find out from the 25th. So given the information that received on the 25th, it was addressing information which would be needed. Now, Sean may have requested additional evidence which may have been needed to perform further on within her service, within her case. Now, given the fact that on the 6th of June, she's advised that she hasn't received evidence, now that evidence could be from valid evidence which is needed for her to compile a case or a resolution or a dismissal.
Okay, all right. So just for my reference, because obviously I don't have this information in front of me that you're privy to, that you have in front of you. You have the service provider responding on the 25th of May. And we're assuming that that is the disclosure of evidence request or whatever. After that date, when is the next time the service provider has contacted the office when was the next time following that? And when have they contacted yourself rather than you contacting them after the 25th of May?
Right. So is this regarding the service, the evidence providing, or is this now you just want to know the date when they've been in touch with us?
Yeah. Well, as you can appreciate, that the service provider instigated communication with yourself in response to the evidence request by contacting yourself around about 1 o'clock on the 4th of May. Miss Jeffries communicated to her to the service provider on the 15th of May. They've then responded by the 25th of May. All I'm trying to establish is that no doubt the Ombudsman or Miss Jeffries would have advised them or regarding the dismissal of the investigation sometime in July. But in the month of June, what other correspondence have taken place between Miss Jeffries and the service provider?
The correspondence, now that could have been a back and forth of communication
between
Mrs. Jeffries and the service provider. So are you asking me to find out what are the dates of the correspondence between back and forth between her and the service provider?
In the month of...
Or are you asking for when...
Sorry.
What's the...
Okay. Just to clarify, in the month of May, this is correct, isn't it? In the month of May, the service provider contacted Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May at 1 o'clock. Miss Jeffries then proceeded to communicate with the service provider on the 15th of May, no doubt advising the service provider of the fact that the case, she's making a recommendation for the case to be dismissed. The service provider then communicated back to her on the 25th of May. Is that all the communication exchanges between the service provider and Miss Jeffries in the month of May?
In the month of May, let me have a look. In the month of May. There was no further communication during May.
Okay, so it's quite right. I mean, in May, the only two outstanding issues were Miss Jeffries making an evidence request, Miss Jeffries making the decision to end the investigation. Those were the only two outstanding issues in the month of May. Can I equally ask, so if there was toing and froing of communication, it wouldn't have been about anything other than the ending of the investigation and the evidence request. So can I equally ask, what was the communication exchanges between Miss Jeffries and the service provider in the month of June?
Okay, let's have a look at the month of June. The next communication was on the 6th of June. to advise about receiving comments due to the dismissal.
Okay, is that the only
From yourself.
Is that the only one?
That was on in June, that correspondence, and it was advised that they should look to update in a few weeks to let them know when to expect the Ombudsman to obviously look into the dismissal.
Okay, all right, because obviously on the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries may have advised the service provider in May that it was her intention to end the investigation, but obviously she required my comments, didn't she? Hence why we had me and Miss Jeffries spoke on the 6th of June, and following that conversation, no doubt she would have advised the service provider of her final decision that she's now, escalating this matter to the Ombudsman. So that makes sense. But can I ask, were there any other correspondence or communications between the service provider and Miss Jeffries in the month of June?
In the month of June, there was just a further communication on the 26th of June, just to advise an update with the Ombudsman.
Okay.
To advise that
So
they're looking into the case.
So would it be correct to say that in the month of June, the service provider had not corresponded with with yourselves? It's only you giving information to the service provider, isn't it?
Well, the information was on the 25th of May. Obviously received information from the service provider, to which I know that correspondence from Sean was mentioning regarding the dismissal. So from that time, I think it was obviously during that case, because the dismissal was being progressed, information that was already given and your comments was due, then it was obviously passed over to an Ombudsman. So it was for them to review before whatever next steps were being taken. So for Sean, it was a matter of just keeping parties updated with what was going on. So just to, obviously from our last communication, would have been like nearly a month ago. So it was obviously just giving more update about what the case was.
What I'm trying to establish is that in the month of June, the service provider had not communicated or corresponded with Miss Jeffries or the legal ombudsman. The last time that they had corresponded or basically sent information to yourself was on the 25th of May. In the month of June, they had not sent any email to yourself, have they? Or they've not corresponded. In the month of June, the service provider did not correspond with you. You, as a legal ombudsman, or Miss Jeffries, had corresponded with them with updates. That's correct assessment, isn't it?
Yeah, because from the 25th of June, the relevant information of what Sean was advising seems to have been taken from the 25th of May, and from there on, obviously, it was put in that the dismissal was being put in place. So I think from the circle of how the events of how the case was going, it was just a matter of
Okay. No, that's fine. Jake, all I'm trying to establish is that in the month of June, the service provider did not have any correspondence with yourself. However, they had received correspondence with you from yourself. That's all I'm trying to establish.
Yeah, so they had received correspondence from ourselves.
Yes, but you had not received any correspondence from them in the month of June.
In the month of June, no.
Okay, that's correct. That's all I'm trying to establish. Now, similarly, in the month of July, no doubt the service provider would have been provided with an update or an outcome. Once again, what I'm trying to establish is that have the service provider communicated with you in the month of July?
With myself or Sean?
Not with the legal ombudsman. So either yourself, why would they be communicating with you? Because obviously you're the managers. Basically, pardon?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been communicating with myself. So you want to know when the service provider was communicating in July as well?
Yeah, just in July.
Okay. Well, in the month of July, so in the month of July, the correspondence was sent from an ombudsman to the service provider
Yes.
on the 24th. At the same time, you received something on the 24th of July.
Yes.
Since then, still to receive correspondence back, but given that it was the ombudsman's letter that was sent out on that date.
Okay, all right. So that's all I'm trying to establish is that I don't understand why you would expect anything back from the service provider after the ombudsman's made their decision. But would it be correct to say that the last time that the service provider contacted the legal ombudsman was on the 25th of May?
Yes.
Okay, they've not subsequently contacted yourselves, and we're presuming now, because you cannot definitively give me the answer, that on the 25th of May they had contacted yourself in response and in compliance with Ms. Jeffrey's evidence request.
Yes, so from there it could have been.
It could have been.
Might have been the evidence requested or the comments made for possible dismissal. But from that, from what I can see from the details, if the information that was given was addressed, and that was kind of like said, and then the obviously case went into a dismissal point of view, where it was awaiting on what an ombudsman's decision would be. So from that area, it was kind of like, right,
I
just
understand.
to give you an update until this part of the case was to be looked at.
Okay, but it is correct that you've sent out information and from the legal ombudsman, but the last time you received a response or incoming information from the service provider was on the 25th of May. That's correct.
25th of May.
Yes, they've not responded to any of the emails to yourselves that you've sent out, any other information. You've not had any correspondence with them from them. That's correct, isn't it?
From what I can see on the notes on the file, it doesn't appear to be. But from the information that had been sent out, it hadn't been a request for any further information.
You're right.
It had been just kind of like quite honestly just giving an update.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. And ideally, you're right. If they had, assuming that they had complied with the evidence request on the 25th of May, they wouldn't need to contact you, would they? Ms. Jeffries has asked for some information. They've responded. They've been updated that Ms. Jeffries has made a decision unilaterally to end the investigation. It would be surprising for me to for objectively to understand that they have had any further correspondence with yourselves, or they've contacted you. So that just seems right, in it. What you're saying does seem right, that they obviously, we're assuming that they replied with our evidence request on the 25th of May. Ms. Jeffries or the Ombudsman may have contacted the service provider subsequently from the 25th of May, but they have not responded in any way with any new information or correspondence with yourself, have they? I'm just trying to establish that.
No.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
so,
no further.
Okay, all right. So thank you for that information, because obviously this now clearly contradicts the information that's been provided to me now. As you can see, that we're just assuming here that on the 25th of May the service provider had responded with the evidence requested. We don't know yet, because you don't have that information in front of you, but we're just going to assume that they had complied by the 25th. Now, this obviously is an issue of main serious concern for me, and I'll explain to you why. The reason it's a concern for me is that if the service provider had responded with the evidence request, then on the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries has deliberately misled me and given me false information, because on the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries has informed me that the service provider has contacted her to request an extension of time. Now, that extension of time, and she has agreed to it. So that was a conversation that took place on the 6th of June. So on the 6th of June, when I had pressed Mrs. Jeffries on the fact that has the service provider complied with the request, she had informed me no, they've requested an extension of time. So then when I asked what is the extension of time, she had refused to give me that information. After you reviewed the call, you have ascertained that she was wrong to not give me that information. So if the service provider had replied by the 25th, then Miss Jeffries could have simply said yes, they've responded, and ended the matter. But she's told me that they hadn't responded, and so she had misled me by informing me that she's given them a further extension of time. And so when I pressed her upon when that further extension of deadline was, she's informed me that, well, she's not chosen to inform me. You've agreed with me that she should have informed me, but we don't know the reasons why she did not inform me. So that is a fact that on the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries has confirmed to me that the service provider has not provided the evidence. So coming back to the 25th of May, where you and I cannot confirm that they provided the evidence, but clearly they did correspond in relation to this. Now, it must be assumed that, given what I've just stated, that Miss Jeffries had informed me that they had not responded with the evidence or complied with the evidence of disclosure on the 6th of June, then it must be concluded that on the 25th of June that they had requested for an extension of time. That I'm just assuming that, because obviously that does make more logical sense, doesn't it? So because we don't know what their correspondence was on the 25th. But what's even more, so I'm stating that Mr. Jeffries had misled me on the 6th of July if they had complied with the evidence request. But going back to the conversation I had with Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May, she had informed me that at 3 o'clock on the 4th of May, that the other party have requested an extension of time, and I have agreed to this. When I pressed her upon a date, she had confirmed that date was the 25th of May. She did not advise me that she had the other party had requested an extension of time to the 9th of June. So that is concerning to me. So for example, I've spoken to her on 3 o'clock on the 4th of June. She's received an email from the service provider, which you confirmed to me, stated that they needed an extension of time until the 9th of June. When I spoke to her, she said no, they just requested an extension of time. Because I asked, did they comply? She said no. So I said, well, why have they not complied? She said they requested an extension of time. I said, well, how much time did you give them? And she stated to me until the 25th of May. And it just seems that if the other party have corresponded on the 25th of May, then no doubt they were given, as you just confirmed, that they did correspond on the 25th of May. So Miss Jeffries has informed me on the telephone that she's extended it for the 25th of May, not the 9th of June, which was requested by the service provider. So I think that's a...
Yeah, go on, sorry.
So I just think that's slightly misleading, isn't it? If Miss Jeffries has told me, yes, they had requested an extension of time till the 9th of June, which is what you're telling me that they had requested, if she had informed me of that would have been okay. Remember, it's down to her discretion how much time she wants to give to the service provider to submit this evidence. However, what she advised me is that they have contacted her requesting an extension of time, and she's agreed to that extension of time. I then asked her, what date have you agreed it to? And she said the 25th of May.
I'm just making
notes
down in here as well. it was the 4th of May that the email was received, and she spoke to yourself.
2 hours later, assuming that the email was.
And it was on the back of a missed call, was it?
Back of a.
Did you call yesterday? That was on the 3rd. Did you do a missed call? Did you try to contact her on the?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think there was a try to contact her. I know that there was communication between. From looking, I can see the communication that she did chase the service provider. Well, she did communicate with the service provider on the 3rd of May, and then advised that comments would be due on the 11th of May.
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
So on the 3rd of May,
yes,
she had messaged the service provider to advise to them that comments would be due.
Comments?
Or if they're unable to, I think comments regarding, because basically from what I can see here, right, so this was to do with evidence, and further evidence that she needed, and she had requested for basically for the service provider. Let's have a look. Right, so this was with the service provider to issue comments regarding the complaint that was raised on the matter. So that I know there was a correspondence between Sean and the service provider to get them to make sure to get in touch with her to send it over if they're unable to send over any further evidence or comments to let her know by the 11th of May.
Okay.
They came back to Sean on the 5th of May to advise that basically they would need more time to collect everything together.
Sorry, what date did they come back to her? Sorry, Jake, to interrupt
They
there.
came back to her the following day, so they came back to her on the 4th.
Okay.
The 4th of May. So essentially, she contacted him on the 3rd of May. They got back in touch with her on the 4th of May to advise that they would possibly to respond by the 9th of June.
Okay.
In terms of sharing documents and information, and then obviously she got back in touch with them, and then obviously they sent in what information was requested, or from what I can see, information requested on the 25th of May.
Okay. Can I just summarize there, because obviously there's some confusion here, because when I asked you earlier on what was the communication or correspondence between between yourself and the service provider, I had assumed that they had contacted you on the 4th. Miss Jeffries had contacted them on the 11th, and then they had contacted you on the 25th.
Miss Jeffries had contacted them on the 3rd.
Yes, that was missing. That was missing. Yes. So, can I just confirm that because I think you've made some said some dates that are confusing me. There was no communication taking place on the 5th of May, was there?
There was no communication made on the 5th of May.
Okay.
It's the 4th of May.
Yes.
That they had asked for.
Yes, I understand.
The 9th of June to send the information.
Okay. And also
by
there's.
The 9th of June.
And also, you've mentioned a date of the 23rd of May. There's no correspondence made on the 25th.
On the 23rd. Wednesday 5th.
25th, not the 23rd.
Not the 23rd.
Okay, because obviously you've made a mistake and said 5th at some time, just like, and corrected yourself. So I just want to categorically confirm that no correspondence.
So I'll confirm the dates for you. So on the 3rd of May,
Yeah.
Sean had made correspondence, sent out outgoing correspondence to the service provider.
Mm-hmm.
On the 5th of May, the service provider had come back requesting an extension. Requesting an extension of time because Sean had asked for information. Requested information to be sent by the 11th of May. They got back to her the next day on the 4th of May to advise that they wouldn't be able to send information until the 9th of June.
Mm-hmm.
They then corresponded back to Sean with the information on the 25th of May.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that summary. Now, obviously, it concerns me, and this is a point of being once again deliberately misled by Miss Jeffries, because as you've explained to me, that sounds like correct chronology. They would have said, look, we need some extra time, because there was a deadline date, I believe. I don't want to get any more dates and confusing, but there was a deadline date, hence why I had spoke to Miss Jeffries on the 4th. Now they had responded to Miss Jeffries' request of the 3rd of May on the 4th of May at 1 o'clock. I spoke to Miss Jeffries at 3 o'clock. Now, what she's told me in that call on the 5th of May, on the 4th of May, which no doubt you have reviewed previously, is there's no mention of the 9th of June. However, she had confirmed to me on the telephone that she had given an extension of time until the 25th of May. So can you understand this? Like, she's informed me that she's given them until the 25th of May, knowing the fact that the day previously she has requested this information to them and given them until the 11th of May to respond to. So I spoke to Miss Jeffries at 3 o'clock. Miss Jeffries knew the fact that yesterday she had asked them for further information and given them the deadline date of the 11th of May. The service provider contacted her the very next day, which was on the 4th of May, at 1 o'clock by email, informing Miss Jeffries that, sorry, we're not going to be able to deal with this until the 9th of June. And then she spoke to me 2 hours later, so it was fresh in her mind. So when I had asked her the question, did the other party respond to the service evidence request, she had informed me no, because they've requested an extension of time. So then I tried to pin down Miss Jeffries, obviously, to what date that was. It was incumbent upon Miss Jeffries to say that I have agreed to the 9th, which is what they've requested, or make me aware before today, which is the 3rd of August. Before today, this is the first time I'm being made aware that the other party, the service provider, had requested, that was their request, until the 9th of June. In that call with Miss Jeffries after 3 o'clock on the 4th of May, if Miss Jeffries has said to me, Mr. Hussain, I have contacted the service provider chasing this up, they have got back to me 2 hours ago, and they have requested the 9th of June. I believe 9th of June is quite excessive, and I have agreed to the 25th of June. All right, that would have been how the matter should have been dealt with. But Miss Jeffries has not confirmed to me that, the 9th of June date, or even made me aware of that, when I have said, okay, if you have agreed to the extension of time, what have you agreed to? And she said the 25th of May. Now, why did she say the 25th of May? All right, because the service provider had not requested that. She had not negotiated that with the service provider. She had not informed the service provider that she would be permitting that to happen. She only informed the service provider, no doubt, which was a next call to the service provider on the 11th of May.
On the 11th of May.
Was that correct? Is that correct? Did she contact the service provider on the 11th of May?
He contacted the service provider on the 15th of May.
Sorry, my mistake. So she contacted the service provider on the 15th of May. So can you understand, the service provider on the 4th of May at 1 o'clock is requesting an extension of time. Miss Jeffries did not respond to the service provider on the 4th of May, did she? To agree this.
Respond back to the service provider on that date, no.
No, she didn't. So she's asked for some information by the 11th. The very next day, the service provider has contacted us saying, "I'm sorry, but we won't be we won't be able to comply until the 9th." All right. She's then had a call with me and confirmed to me that she's agreed to the date of the 25th. However, the reality is that she's not agreed that with anybody. She's not agreed with the service provider because they had requested until the 9th of June. She's not confirmed to that in writing that she thinks 9th of June is excessive, and she was agreeing to the 25th, and the service provider confirming that they'll be complying to the 25th. She's just told me over the telephone, I've agreed to an extension, and when I said what is that date, she's just mentioned to me the 25th.
Right. So I mean, from that part of the phone call, because obviously from initially listening to the phone call and measuring the dates which have also been given, obviously from giving you the date on the 25th to then obviously having the information sent on the 25th and the date, because I know obviously she had a conversation with you on the 6th of June, which then obviously led to the fact of within that conversation it was obviously explained that the date could have just been given then, which, given the fact that on the 25th she received information, and around that time in June there was no, as I said, there was no reason as to why she couldn't give you a correct date, as obviously given the fact that on the 4th of June she gave you the 25th of May. Now, I'm, as I said, looking to take this further with regards to the information that has been given, which has been incorrect, misleading. So this is something that we are obviously going to be addressing once Sean comes back from sick leave and I'm back from annual leave. So that's something we are picking up.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, I just wanted to get this information because at this stage, as you can appreciate, I should not be dealing with new information, and what you provided me with that, the service provider had requested until the 9th of June, which is, obviously 5 weeks later, which is an excessive amount of time. Now, obviously, the reason I believe that this is quite pivotal, because obviously I don't want to be going over this matter over and over. You've been very helpful in eliciting the information, and obviously you do understand what my grievances are. My grievances are that on the 4th of May, Miss Jeffries has informed me on the telephone call that she is agreeing to an extension of time until the 25th. My subsequent correspondence, because obviously the reason that this is very important to me is because I'm just conscious of the fact that the service provider have not provided any information regarding the case. The Miss Jeffries had informed me much earlier on in the investigation that she will not be requesting the case file. So, and I had previously made a subject access request for my case file. So I was obviously very conscious, or this was very important to me, that I should know when the service provider has responded with the evidence request. I made it a point in discussions with Miss Jeffries on the 11th of May that I want to coordinate my subject access request for disclosure for when that you would have received it. So she had informed me that it's going to be on the 25th. So I said, okay, well, I'll just have to wait until to make a subsequent subject access request after the other party have submitted their evidence on the 25th, and I will make a subject access request. So these are discussions I had with Ms. Jeffries on the 11th. At no stage on the 4th of May or the 11th of May had Ms. Jeffries informed me that the new evidence request was anything other than the 25th. You will see from my subsequent correspondence, I've eagerly pursued this matter and without compromise, and asked in writing, has reminded Ms. Jeffries that their service provider need to comply by the 25th. Subsequently, after the 25th, I've made a written request to confirm if the service provider has responded to by the 25th. And then on the 6th of June, when I did converse with her, she had informed me that no, the service provider had requested a further extension of time, which once again I do not take issue with, because once again this is Miss Jeffries' under Miss Jeffries' discretion as the investigator. So I don't take an issue with this. If she's given them until 10 years later, I don't really care. But what I am conscious of is that they've already received an extension of time, which was informed to me by Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May that they are requested under the 25th of May, which is a reasonable amount of time. It's not 5 weeks, is it? It's only a couple of weeks later, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, which is reasonable. So she has informed me that they are requested an extension of time from the 25th. When I spoke to her on the 6th, I had asked her to confirm to me that have they complied with. If they had complied on the 25th, then she misled me on the 6th by telling me that they had not complied. If they had not complied, she then explained to me that they have not complied, and I've given them a further extension of time. When I pressed her upon this issue of what date has that been extended to, she's obviously then looked to obfuscate the matter and obviously discombobulated everything, and has not given me a definitive date or the reason why she's refusing to give me that information. So we don't need to cover this over and over again. Obviously, there's quite clearly a lot of misleading going on here. But the bottom line remains is that you're assuming that the service provider complied with the evidence request. Now, if they did comply with the evidence request on the 25th of May, then Miss Jeffries misled me on the 6th of June by telling me that they hadn't done so. I personally believe that they have not complied. And the whole point of this exercise has been in order to facilitate the service provider, in order for the legal ombudsman to give them a get out of free jail card. So I just want to wrap this up now regarding the issues of the evidence request of what you were looking to investigate. And what I want to, obviously wrap up by saying that Miss Jeffries, you've concluded that she should have given me that information, and we're now trying to determine why did she not give me that information. And also, as a result of this conversation with yourself and the information that you provided me with, the extra information that you provided me with today, it seems evident to me that given the conversations on the 4th of May, the 11th of May, and the 6th of June, that clearly Miss Jeffries misled me regarding this matter. Is that clear?
So from the information that was given, you wasn't given the incorrect dates, so you would have been classed as being, on a feeling of the fact that you wasn't given a date of what the extension was, and the date when this 25th of May was given, and why was it given. It can lead to being misled given the confusion, and like you said, it just got into a place where dates were given incorrectly, or dates weren't given for no reason at all as to why they're not given. So
so just to clarify, on the 4th of June, 2 hours after the service provider had requested an extension of time until the 9th of June, Miss Jeffries had misled me by informing me.
May, sorry.
Yeah. So Miss Jeffries.
So the 4th of May and the 9th. So the 4th of May, the extension was made for the 9th of June.
Yes, but she had misled me by telling me that she had agreed to the extension that the other party had requested for the 25th of May. But she could not have agreed that because, as you know, they had only requested it 2 hours earlier.
Right, yes, that's correct.
So she misled me.
That's from when the email was applied onto the system, yes, that's correct.
All right. So irrespective, on that day, there was no other further, you confirmed to me there was no other further toing and froing between Miss Jeffries and the service provider after that email had been sent, because on that day, when the email had been sent, I had a call with her. I can confirm I spoke to Miss Jeffries on that day at 3 p.m. And you've confirmed to me that there's not been any negotiating of the extension of time, but she had informed me that she has agreed to the time extension. And when I pressed her upon what date that is, she had informed me the date of the 25th. I don't believe the date of the 25th was suggested by the service provider. Obviously, you've confirmed to me that the date of the 25th was not suggested by the service provider on the 4th of May. She had just basically effectively pulled that out of the air when I had propositioned her of when exactly is the day of the new deadline date, and she had made no mention that the service provider had requested the 9th of June. So there's some misleading going on there by Miss Jeffries, deliberately, I believe, or incompetently, or through negligence, that she has misled me by telling me the date of the 25th. However, subsequently, on the 25th, and subsequently on the 25th there has been some correspondence from the service provider. We do not know if that was a compliance of the evidence request. However, on the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries has confirmed to me that the evidence has not been complied with, and I've extended the time period for the from the service provider, and then when she's failed to provide me with that date or what that is, so we've gone from a definitive date to some sort of obstruction, and that is what I'm obviously complaining about, because obviously I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May, the 11th of May, and also the 6th of June, and I should not be in this very convoluted and discombobulated state of mind of what's going on here. There's no certainty. We've gone from quite a certain position to quite an uncertain position. We do not know whether the service provider has even to this day complied with this evidence request. Can you confirm to me, can you confirm to me, Jake, that at this stage, as Mr. Jeffries' manager, can you confirm to me categorically, has the service provider complied with the evidence request?
From what I can see, with regards to the information that Sean needed on this case, I can see that the service provider has provided Sean with what she needs. And given the fact that an ombudsman has looked at this as well and reviewed it and kind of looked at the fact of if the information that they needed has been provided, and they've gone ahead and made their decision based on that. Because
Okay.
This is what happens when a dismissal report is given
I understand.
The ombudsman would obviously question it and kind of like say, well, what evidence is needed? Is the correct information being provided? If not, then it would be thrown back as into saying
yes.
Okay.
So at this stage, I'm asking a very, very simple question. As Miss Jeffries' manager and somebody who's obviously looked and investigated in this case quite thoroughly now, because obviously we've had several conversations in the past.
Yeah.
Can you categorically state to me that the service provider on the 25th of May has complied with the evidence request?
From what I see, from how the case has been processed, and that being the last information to be sent out by the service provider, I can say yes.
Okay, all right. Well, this is quite clearly, if that is the case, if the service provider has complied with the evidence request, because remember in our previous conversations, I have made the allegation that Miss Jeffries was premature to terminate this investigation because Miss Jeffries had terminated this case on the 11th of May. So on the 11th of May, in my conversation with Miss Jeffries, she's informed me that she's now looking to escalate this matter to the Ombudsman to have the case dismissed. So at that stage, she had not received the evidence from the service provider. You're stating to me now that the evidence, as Miss Jeffries' manager, you're saying that the service provider complied on the 25th. Then if the service provider complied on the 25th, then Miss Jeffries could not give me the date of when she's put the extension, because Miss Jeffries could not give me the date of the extension because there was no extension. So she was forced to give me misleading information that she had extended it. And the reason that she could not give me the extension date is because she had received the evidence. Why on the 6th of June would there be a need to have an extension if the evidence had been received? If the evidence had been received on the 25th of May, as you now seem to be suggesting, then why had Miss Jeffries informed me that she had not received the evidence and she had agreed to a further extension of time, which she was then failing to provide me with the exact date of that time?
Given the evidence which may have been advised and needed, it was still, from looking at the letter that was sent on the 15th to the service providers, it was obviously advising to them that the investigation itself and the complaint, it was being intended to go into an ombudsman for dismissal due to some areas of the complaint.
Yes.
Now she still has asked that the service provider sends the evidence to her by the 9th of June, as suggested, in case we do not choose not to dismiss the complaint. So if the complaint was not to be dismissed, you would still need further, she's still requesting for further evidence. So on the 25th, information was received, but from the letter on the 15th of May, the email she sent to the 15th of May, she's obviously advised the service provider that it is gone for dismissal. However, she is still requested for them to send evidence in by the 9th of June, as suggested, in case the dismissal gets rejected, which is the correct process to go through.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so she wrote to them on the 15th of May, hasn't she? And she's saying to them, I agree with your time extension that you had requested on the 4th of May at 1 o'clock. So the service provider had contacted her and asked that, look, we need an extension of time until the 9th of June. She's replied to them on the 15th of May saying that, yeah, okay, fair enough, you can have until the 9th. Just to make you aware that I'm looking to obviously escalate this to the Ombudsman to have it dismissed, but you should continue to provide me with that information before the 9th of June. And then the service provider has responded to her on the 25th of June. Is that what you're telling me?
The service provider got back to her on the 25th of June, and that put in. The service provider got back in touch with her on the 23rd of June. So service provider got back to her on the 23rd of June, replying about the information, or replied regarding information that had been requested. Now, again, I can't go into detail what information it was, because that is only dealt with the case itself.
Okay, so Jake, I mean, obviously, you see that there's a saying in it. There's a saying that comes to mind. Oh, what a tangled web you look to weave when you first look to deceive. All right, and I think this is just becoming now quite comical, because in this conversation, obviously, we've been on this call now for an hour. I have quite categorically asked you, can you please tell me the dates of what the communications has happened? I've then proceeded to tell you, can you, because you keep on missing, making mistakes on the dates, can you please confirm to me that there was no communication between Miss Jeffries and the service provider on the 5th of May? You've agreed, no, there was not any communication. I've then said, look, you kind of fumbled.
On the 5th of May.
Yeah, on the 5th of May. I asked you earlier on in this conversation, please can you categorically confirm to me that there was no communication on the 5th of May, because you've done some Freudian slips and mentioned the word 5th. Can we have it confirmed that there was no communication on the 5th of May? And you in this call earlier on, you have confirmed to me that there was no communication on the 5th of May. That's correct, isn't it?
So on the 5th of May, I'm going through the details again to confirm for you. On the 5th of May, the communication, which was, there was no, let's have a look, there was no communication on the 05/05/2023.
Yes, okay, so there was no communication between, and earlier on in this conversation, I also said, look, you messed up on a couple of dates, which is confusing me. Was there any communication on the 23rd of May? All right, you confirmed to me. Yes.
Sorry.
You in this conversation earlier on, you confirmed to me, yes, there was no communication on the 23rd of May, but there was a communication on the 25th of May. Now, now you seem to be backstepping. So, can you categorically confirm to me on the 23rd, was there any communication between Miss Jeffries and the service provider?
On the 23rd of May, and I'll go through the dates again for you. So, on the 23rd of May, the communication, which was sent on the 23rd of May from the service provider to Sean Jeffries on the 23rd of May. I must have got mixed up because obviously the 25th of May has been mentioned, given the fact that you mentioned that Sean advised you that on the 25th of May that date was given. But I can confirm the dates for you to confirm what, again, the dates of when things were being sent out, just to make it clear.
Okay, so let me just say these dates, okay? So on the 3rd of May, Miss Jeffries contacted the service provider. On the 4th of May, the service provider responded. On the 4th of May, I spoke on the telephone call with Miss Jeffries at 3 o'clock. And then the next thing is that on the 11th of May, I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the telephone when she advised me that the case was looking to be ended. On the 15th of May, Miss Jeffries has contacted the service provider. On the 23rd of May, the service provider has responded to Miss Jeffries. No communication has taken place on the 25th of May. Is that correct?
So say the 15th, the date's on the 15th of May. What date, what have you put on the 15th of May?
15th of May.
15th of May.
Yeah, 15th of
May.
Sorry, Miss 15th of May, Miss Jeffries contacted the service provider to advise them that of her decision to end the investigation, because she had informed me on the 11th that she was going to be ending the investigation. So is it correct that Miss... Yep.
On the 15th of May,
yep,
Sean had been in touch with the service provider to advise them that still to send the evidence, but just to advise them that it has been, she has
yes,
some possibilities of it being dismissed.
Yes.
That was on the 15th.
All right, and she's advised them that I just want to be clear here. She's advised them on the 15th that they should look to comply by the 9th of June.
She would still, she's advised that she would still want them to send the evidence in by the 9th of June.
Okay, and by the 23rd of June, the service provider has responded.
On the 23rd of June, the service provider had responded.
Yes, and then subsequently, after the 23rd of June, there's been no further correspondence.
On the 23rd of June...
Until the end of the month.
23rd of June, sorry.
Yeah. So no, sorry. I made a mistake there. After the 23rd of May till the end of May, there's been no further correspondence.
Okay, I'm going to just make sure and double check for you. Dates. There was... correspondence between Sean and the SP was from the 23rd. The next correspondence was on the 6th of June.
Yes, okay. So this date that's confused you of the 25th is something that I've been going on about, isn't it? It's something that was my understanding was the 25th. I've told you that Miss Jeffries has told. So as far as you're concerned, as far as the paperwork trail seems to suggest, this date is fictitious, isn't it? The 25th of May.
The 25th of May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fictitious date, isn't it? It's something that
I
I'm
don't see any correspondence or anything leading to suggest that there was an agreement made for the 25th of May.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously that as you can see that, yeah, at this stage. I'm just trying to find out what my correspondence were to Miss Jeffries, but why had the 25th of the date of the 25th even been mentioned by me, or has been repeatedly mentioned by me? All right, it's something that obviously is concerning to me, that I've been mentioning the date of the 25th, which was suggested to me by Miss Jeffries. And the reason I've been mentioning the day of the 25th is because my assumptions had been that that the day of the 25th is when the service provider will be was the extension time, new extension date. Okay, so I'm just gonna wait on just 1 second. Can you confirm with that affirmative that you have not? So I've got an email here on the 25th sent to Miss Jeffries at 8 a.m. Can you please look to see if you can get access to that email?
You sent it to Sean Jeffries on the 25th.
On the 25th of May at 8 a.m. If you do, it's not a big email. If you don't have access to Miss Jeffries' email, I can read it to you.
Okay, let's have a look. At 8 o'clock.
At 8 o'clock on the 25th, because remember, you're saying that...
I shall look to respond to the following shortly. At the moment,
yes.
In the time, please can confirm if an finished, if that you have now received the evidence disclosed requested from a solicitor as per my understanding of the time extension they had sorted.
Yes, and she's responded on the same day at 17:25 to state, "Thank you for your email. I have spoken with the firm and agreed that they can have some further time to gather the response to my evidence request. I have advised I will not look to review the evidence until a decision has been made by the Ombudsman regarding my dismissal request. As soon as I receive a comment, I will request an Ombudsman to review the request." So you can see that this is so just a moment ago you've confirmed to me that the date of the 25th is fictitious as far as you can tell from the evidence that you have before you, that looking at the system, that she had contacted the service provider on the 15th of May. The service provider had responded by the 23rd of May, which is not information that I'm privy to. Obviously, you've made me aware of this, but right in front of you, you've got an email from me to Mrs. Jeffries, dated the 25th of May at 8 a.m. And as you can see, I'm once again saying, look, okay, I'll deal with what you're saying, but can you please confirm to me, has the evidence been received? And she's wrote back and said, no, they've extended further time. So I think on the 26th of May, I said, please can you confirm how much more time you have now given the firm to comply with your disclosure request? So on the 26th, I'm asking this information. Okay. On the 26th, just let me see. I'm just understanding. I have telephone appointment. Discuss suggestion.
20. So on the 25th of May, you requested the information just to find out if the SP had sent in their information.
Yes.
She had replied back on the same day.
Yes.
Advising to you that spoke to the firm and agreed that they can have some further time to gather and respond to the evidence request. As I've advised, I will not look to review any evidence until a decision has been made by Ombudsman regarding my dismissal request.
Yes, and then on the very next day, on the 26th of May at 11:36, I sent a very short email again to Mrs. Jeffries saying, please can you confirm how much more time you have now given the firm to comply with your disclosure request?
Yeah.
Okay. And she's not, obviously that has not been answered or complied with, have they? I've put that in writing to Miss Jeffries on the 26th of May. I have, because my understanding in previous calls on the 4th and the 11th of May was that an extension of time had taken place until the 25th. So I had politely emailed her on the 25th at 8 a.m., basically prompting her to ensure that that the other party, because my understanding and the information I had before me or been given to me or was led to believe whether the extension time was agreed with Miss Jeffries with the service provider of the 25th, and hence why I would send an email at 8 a.m. on the 25th just to drill home that point. Miss Jeffries wrote back to me on the 25th at 17:25, at 5:25, end of play on the day, to advise me that no, she's given them more extension of time. All right. And then I've just asked on the 26th What time is that? What is the extension? She's not responded to that. I then obviously drilled home this question on the 6th of June when I spoke to her. Please tell me what extension that is. And she's not given me that extension of time to this date. So can you understand that the date of the 25th is not fictitious? It's not fictitious. If you just can you just
No, I can't see any details at the present moment of that 25th of June date being 25th of May, sorry, date being given anywhere to suggest what the reason as to why this date had been given to yourself and as to why it's been put on there, because I cannot see from the activity log to see if there's any suggestions as to the 25th being a date given.
Okay. And maybe you cannot see that, but if you review the call on the 4th of June, I'm getting confused here myself. On the 4th of May, sorry. If you review the call on the 4th of May, I've gone through this several times, is that was when the service provider had contacted Miss Jeffries to ask for an extension of time, which you've confirmed to me now would have been done via email. And they have emailed in saying that they want an extension of time till the 6th of June. When I spoke to her, she is the one that suggested the date of the 25th. I've then obviously subsequently followed this up with a written correspondence to confirm, because I was very eager for the service provider to comply with the evidence request. So irrespective with Miss Jeffries' decision to end the investigation, I was very insistent, and so therefore on the 25th, which is a date that was given to me by Miss Jeffries, which I'm saying now is that it was misleading, because the records that you have in front of you, the paper trail, has no mention of the 25th, but it was given to me by Miss Jeffries on the telephone call on the 4th of May. Hence why subsequently I have chosen to speak to her about this. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, I think there's some previous emails that I've also mentioned the date of the 25th. But as you can quite clearly evidence that the day of the 25th, I had contacted Miss Jeffries, and she has responded by stating that I have, as I have advised, I will not be looking. Agreed. I have spoken with the firm and agreed that they can have some further time. So when she says she's spoken with the firm, you've not advised me of this. When did she speak to the firm?
Sorry, say that again.
On the 25th of May at 17:25, Miss Jeffrey states, Thank you for your email, Mr. Hussain. I have spoken with the firm and agreed that they can have some further time to gather and respond to my evidence request. Yeah. So when did she speak to them?
So from all I can see from here is, and this is where I need to kind of speak to herself to gather if she's got a call, because there's no call that's been put onto the system, which indicates there has been a phone call that she's spoken to a service provider to arrange of a date and time.
But it is correct that all your calls are recorded?
Yes, we do have. I will say that though, we do have some problems sometimes where calls may have not gone through, but there's nothing on here to know that there's been call notes put in place.
Okay, and with regards to calls being recorded, in addition to calls being recorded, calls are logged, aren't they? Namely, for example, if I've called in today and we've had this call and it's been recorded, that's one thing, but you will be logging the fact that I have spoken to Mr. Hussain at length or something like this. Similarly, Miss Jeffries would have, what I'm trying to basically state, if there had been any telecommunication other than email or written communication, if there had been any oral communication, it would have necessarily been logged, wouldn't it?
That's correct.
Yes. And so when Mr. Jeffries writes to me and states to me that I have spoken with the firm, she has not stated I have written to the firm. She has stated I have spoken with the firm, and you at this stage, as her manager who has access to the system, cannot confirm to me that there's been any telecommunication between Miss Jeffries and the service provider prior to the 25th of May. But you can confirm to me that Miss Jeffries had emailed or sent written correspondence to the service provider on the 15th of May.
On the 15th of May, the investigator advised to the SP about of the fact of dismissal.
Yes.
and also that
Yes.
she still would need them to be sending their evidence in the case of that a dismissal was to go through.
What form did that communication take? Was it via email or via telephone?
That was, from what I can see, that was done via email.
Okay, all right. So that was written. That was not a discussion, was it? So that's what you've told me, that Miss Jeffries contacted the service provider via email, not by telephone. She did not speak to them, and she's made that. We've gone through what she's written there. They have responded to Miss Jeffries on the 23rd of May, which we believe is compliance, which you believe is compliance with the evidence request. However, after myself just a moment ago directing you to an email correspondence between myself and Miss Jeffries after the 23rd of May, on the 25th of May, all right, you can see that Miss Jeffries has confirmed in an email that she's spoken with the firm and agreed an extension of time. So first of all, there's a question of whether she spoke to them or whether she emailed them or whether she's just fabricating this. But it's evident.
On the 23rd, can you say the date again for me? Because I've written these down. So you said the 23rd of May, or did you say the 25th? What was the date that you gave?
You know, Mr. Ositutu, the day of the 23rd is alien to me. It's something I'm not known about until I've spoken to you today. The date I have
the 23rd of. Oh, right, for them getting.
Yeah,
getting in touch.
That's alien to me. This is the first time I'm receiving this information. What is known to me is the date of the 25th. So as you can see, on the 25th, I have contacted Miss Jeffries at 8 a.m. asking whether the evidence disclosure has now taken place by the service provider. On the very same day, on the 25th of May, all right, Miss Jeffries has confirmed to me that I have spoken with the firm and agreed that they can have some further time to gather and respond to my evidence request. As I have advised, I will not look to review any evidence until a decision has been made by the Ombudsman regarding my dismissal request. As soon as I receive your comments, I will request an Ombudsman to review my request. So on the 25th of May, Miss Jeffries is telling me that she's spoken with the service provider, agreed to a further extension of time. The following day, I ask her, what is that extension of time? I ask her, what is the date of that extension of time on the 6th of June when I spoke to her? She's not giving me that information. But what is quite clear to me on the 25th of May is that Miss Jeffries is making absolutely no reference to the service provider having contacted her a couple of days ago, on the 23rd of June, which you now seem to be suggesting. So what's happened here is that if Miss Jeffries has contacted me on the 25th of May, sorry, I keep on saying June, I mean May. So on the 25th of May, Miss Jeffries has contacted me at 5:25 and stated that, given them an extension of time after speaking to them, and so I've not received evidence from them. However, what you're telling me is that on the 23rd of May, the service provider had spoken to her or had emailed her. She's not advised this to me. She could have wrote on the 25th that, Mr. Hussain, I have received some information from the service provider, or I have something. She's not made any reference to what you're now suggesting is the 23rd, that the service provider had contacted her. So when she states, I have spoken with the firm, I believe that she is misleading me when she's saying the word spoken. No doubt she had written to the service provider on the 15th of May, and the service provider had responded to her in writing on the 23rd of May. And no doubt the service provider would have stated, I need extra time, or whatever that correspondence was. But would you now agree with me, having read this email of the 25th of May, that the service provider did not, or could not, or would not have complied with the evidence request? Because if
that question again.
Sorry, let me say that again. Will you agree with me that the service provider could not, would not, or did not comply with the evidence request in their communication with Miss Jeffries on the 23rd of May, which you confirmed they contacted, the service provider contacted Miss Jeffries on the 23rd of May. What I'm saying is, will you agree with me that the service provider in that correspondence or communications did not, would not, or could not have complied with the service with the evidence request, simply because of the evidence now of the email that I received from Miss Jeffries 2 days later on the 25th of May, where she makes no reference to any evidence request compliance by the service provider only 2 days prior. She's not writing to me saying that the service provider have provided some part or any of the information evidence request that I had requested. No, she actually states, I have spoken with the firm and agreed that they can have some further time to gather and respond to my evidence request. So 2 days later, so it is a fact, isn't it now, that undeniably with what I've presented to you right now on the telephone, that the service provider has not provided complied with the evidence request.
From what I can see from now, I don't, and from the email that Sean's sent to you advising that she's asked for an extension, I can't see that the service provider has provided that evidence, because at the same time, I understand that obviously a dismissal has been put in place as well. So from this factor, from the information that you've been given, though, it has been kind of misleading, because you've advised, you haven't really been given clear instructions as to what is it that the deadlines have been given, what is the next stages in compiling with, right, okay, so their evidence is coming in, but at the same time, I have to wait for this dismissal to get in place first, because if the dismissal comes in place and the evidence is not needed because of where the dismissal is and the reason why we're saying that we're unable to do it given the success. But I do believe that you've been misled with information given that 25th was a deadline, when there's no information as to the 25th of May being given. Also, just obviously advising with the fact that you've asked for, well, what's the extension date being given, and that information hasn't been provided, which could have been provided. There was no reason as to why not providing it. It's not an act on data protection. So from that period, from the 3rd of May up until the 6th of May, given the information that had been received, communication between Sean and parties of yourself and the SP, it should have been clear and should have been clearly given, one, what the extension dates are, what the information is to be received, and what the next steps of the process would be. One would be the fact of that, yes, I've requested for evidence from the SP. However, as this case is due for dismissal, I may not need the evidence, but I'm looking at the dismissal at the moment. If the dismissal is being rejected, then the evidence would be seeked. It should have been explained a lot easier through that time, so that you was made aware of it. But from seeing this case and the evidence brought up to you, and obviously clearly upholding it, there's been clear evidence here that it's been kind of misleading with the information that you've been given with dates of when SP had been sending evidence in, or when they will be sending evidence by, or how long have they got until they have to be sending the evidence in.
Okay, Mr. OC22, can I just explain the fact that in this conversation, so this is now a conversation running, I think now in 1 hour and 42 minutes. In this conversation, just earlier on, I've asked you to confirm to me, as Miss Jeffries is a manager and somebody who has oversight over her, who's not here right now, who's on sick leave, and whose system that you have full access to, whose email correspondence that you've obviously read and stuff. I've asked you the question earlier on that, can you categorically state to me, has the service provider complied with the evidence request? Earlier on, you've said to me, as far as I can tell, from what information I've got in front of me, that yes, they have complied with the evidence request, because
with the information requested.
Yeah, with the information requested. Okay, all right. So I asked the question basically that have they complied with that request, and you said from the evidence I can see before me. Yeah. So they have complied. And then you further added that I am also aware that the Ombudsman has now made a decision. So how could the Ombudsman not have made a decision if there was no evidence complied with? So you in this conversation.
So from the decision that the Ombudsman has made it from is on the back of the dismissal, given.
No, I understand.
From what?
Yes, please can you permit me to finish recapping what was just said to me in this conversation earlier on? Because obviously this call is recorded by yourself and by myself, so there's no confusion here. Earlier on in this conversation, you seem to have led me to believe that, of course, I've asked you the direct question of whether the evidence request has been received, and you seem to have suggested that yes, there has been received. All right, because obviously we do not know what this email from the service provider on the 23rd was. So, and then you've added the caveat that in order for the Ombudsman would have, because the Ombudsman's decision was made in July, so they would have obviously had that information, and you can understand that the importance of being able to make that decision by the Ombudsman to have that information. You seem to have suggested to me in this call, and I'm obviously speaking to you directly. It's not like another day. I'm asking you. I'm telling you now that you seem to have given me the impression that the decision by the Ombudsman has been made, and it would have been made on the back of evidence. And the evidence, and the evidence, no doubt, would have been received. So that's the impression that you've given me. Now, when I've said, okay, let's just agree with you on that. Can I please I'm just going to finish now. So when I said, okay, let's agree with you on that, then I pulled up the evidence, all right, that contradicts the fact that there was no evidence submitted. Now you're telling me something else. Now tell me, is that an incorrect recap of what's just happened?
At the start of the conversation, you asked me, has evidence been received from the service provider? I advised to you that the information that had been received from the service provider had been what Sean had looked to request and advise. On that occasion, obviously looking in deeper, what we've seen is that the evidence, as in evidence needed to support the case, as I said, I can't go into detail regarding, has still not been, and still, as from what I can see, still not been given because the case has been dismissed. Looking into the letters that have been sent out and the emails that have been sent out, Sean has asked the provider to, yes, you still need to send in evidence in case that the file, the case itself, does not get dismissed. So earlier when you asked me, has this service provider provided evidence, I advised to you that from what I can see on the details, what Sean has requested or asked from the service provider, information has been received. However, I'm sure it will be on the recording if you recorded it. I did mention there have been additional parts that Sean had asked for from the service provider. Now, given how the case has gone, there has not been evidence received from the service provider. It has been advised that there was a dismissal which was in the practice of happening. If the dismissal was to be rejected, then obviously we would be in a case of, well, the service provider still hasn't provided the evidence that we requested, because from what I can see here, Sean has chased the service provider asking for the evidence.
When did she chase them? When did she chase them? She chased them on the 15th of May? Sorry, 15th of...
So she advised to the service provider, the 3rd of May, Sean obviously contacted the service provider asking him to send in the evidence. On the 4th of May, the service provider requested for the evidence to be sent on the 9th of June. On the 4th of May, they had a call with yourself. And during that call, she advised to you that it'd be the 25th of May, where we've now established that was a misleading information. On the, that was at 3 o'clock, the phone call. On the 15th of May, investigator advised to the SP regarding the dismissal, however, still advised to the SP that they would still need to have the information, the evidence, because in case of a dismissal not being put through, they still need the evidence by the 9th of June. On the 23rd of May, they received information from the SP. Now, from what I can see, that was information that Sean obviously needed from that case. So on the 25th of May, we see received information. The 25th of May, made where you've obviously advised nothing has been.
Okay.
Nothing can be seen because it's
Can I?
on the 23rd.
Yes.
So the 20.
Sorry to interject, Mr. RC22. What I'm trying to say is that you seem to be using two terminologies here, which is confusing the matter. You're saying that she received information from the service provider on the 23rd. Yeah, on the 23rd. But when you're using the word information, is there evidence? Is it the evidence? Because you seem to be convoluting the word evidence with information. Now, on the 23rd of May, the service provider did respond. What did they respond with? Was it information?
But that's what you're asking me to say. Exactly what the service. You're trying to ask me what the service provider responded. Yeah. Has it been clear evidence?
Yes.
What I can see is that the service provider has provided Sean with information. Now, she
what is that?
asked for further evidence. The information that she's obviously been provided by the service provider hasn't been to what she needs. So she's gone back to the service provider, obviously advising need further evidence.
Okay.
By this date.
Why? Sorry, Mr. Ositutu, why are you mentioning information? Can you categorically state that on the 23rd of May that the service provider responded with evidence request? Did they comply with the evidence request?
On the 23rd of May, the information received from Sean, I can see there's information, so evidence, there's evidence on there. Has it been the relevant evidence that Sean needed within the case? I'm unaware that it's needed. Obviously, there were still suggestions that there needs to be evidence sent in by this date, which is the 9th of June, and also obviously to clarify there was a dismissal in place.
Okay, all right, okay.
From that point, I can't see and I can't say if that was categorically the evidence which was needed, clearly needed by Sean to complete the investigation. Okay,
what information was provided by the service provider on the 23rd of May? What information was it, if it was not evidence?
Well, so you're asking me to find out what evidence they sent over?
No.
I can see there was documents.
Sorry, no, I'm not asking for. Did they send some documents across?
They've sent information over to Sean on the 23rd of May, Mr. Hussain.
So they have sent.
So what is it that we're entailing to? Because I've already advised that there is some misleading.
Yes.
Advised on the 25th of the date. I can't tell you what the information was that was being sent out, but you're still asking me to ask, well, what is it that was sent out?
Well, the reason I am... sorry to cut you in there. The reason is because we've gone past the convoluted part of the 25th and the 23rd of May. All right, we've gone past that dates.
Yeah.
What we're trying to ascertain here is that, look, on the 4th of May, the service provider has asked for an extension of time. All right. On the 15th of May, Miss John Jeffries has agreed to this. Now, ordinarily, knowing my background and knowing how I've been working with this service provider, why would they not wait until the 9th of June to provide any evidence? All right, because they are always took out the maximum amount of extension of time. Now, you've informed me that on the 15th of May, Miss Jeffries has agreed with their request for the 9th of June. However, surprisingly, what you're telling me is that by the 23rd of May, the service provider has provided some information. Then I'm asking, is that information evidence that Miss Jeffries had requested? And you seem to be sounding like convoluting the matter here. You're saying no.
I'm not trying to convolute the matter. What I'm trying to do is I'm not. What I'm trying to suggest is that I'm not going to turn around to you and say that it's right. This was the evidence that they provided was X, Y, and Z. Information was provided on that date where, from what I can see, from what I gather, there was still need for further evidence needed. So whatever information or evidence was given on that date, there was clearly a state that there would need to be further information. However, obviously at the same time, there is an act of a dismissal going through. So
let's put the dismissal to one side. Okay. So at this moment in time, on the 23rd.
So, Mr. Hussain, can I just ask, because obviously, as you've mentioned, we are going over the time which allegedly that we've got here. So I've explained to you that there's been a misleading part of it. You're asking me for what information's been sent on that date, on the
if you're not,
I've advised you that
yeah.
So what is it that you're trying to
What I'm trying to
get to?
Okay, what I'm trying to get to is that are you in,
ascertain here?
all right, okay. What I'm trying to ascertain is that what was this information, because it clearly was not the evidence, and you're saying it was the evidence. So because you've used the term, but because you used the term information was given, you're not telling. So I've asked you the clear and categorical question: on the 23rd of May, had the service provider provided the evidence request? And you can't answer that in the affirmative or not in the affirmative. You seem to be suggesting that some of the information was given. So, but let's not use the word information. Let's stick to the word evidence.
Okay, so let's use the term that, from what I can see,
yeah.
if Sean needed some information as in evidence,
yes,
evidence would be suggested that was given on the 23rd.
Okay.
Now, was it correct evidence which could line to Sean making a case decision based on it? If it was not to be dismissed, that I can't confirm.
Okay.
It's gone through a dismissal.
Okay, we like I said, let's put the dismissal to one side, which obviously I wanted to discuss with you about. But at this moment in time, let's just say, for argument's sake, that on the 23rd of May, that the service provider, let's just say, assume that they had fully complied with the evidence request, fully 100%. All right, end of the matter. So then obviously Miss Jeffries should have advised me, yes, I've received this. That did not take place. Now let's just say, assume that some information was provided, namely partial evidence was provided. Then what needs to happen is that you need to tell me that Miss Jeffries, after having received partial information from the service provider on the 23rd of May, has said, no, actually, this is not correct. You've only given me some of the information. So you then need to tell me after the 23rd of May, that on the 20th of May, Miss Jeffries actually advised the service provider the information that we've partially received, or the partial evidence request that we've received, all right, some of the information that you provided is not the complete information. So can you please ensure that the whole of the information is complied with by the 9th? No, that correspondence does not exist because it did not take place. Because as you've explained to me, no other further information was sent to the service provider until the 6th of June. Now, on the 6th of June, what was sent to the service provider was the fact that the case was going to be was now being escalated to the Ombudsman. So, if on the 23rd of May, the service provider has provided some information and it was not to Mr. Jeffries' satisfaction, then quite clearly the evidence would show that Ms. Jeffries had highlighted this to the service provider. That did not take place. Now, on the suggestion that on the 15th of May that Miss Jeffries had agreed to the time extension of the 9th of June, and then subsequently wrote to the service provider on the 6th of June, advising them that the matter was going to be escalated to the Ombudsman, and the fact that I don't believe that she's advised them to regarding the date of the 9th of June, which I'm telling you now, Mr. Ossie, is news to me regarding the 9th of June. It is a factual accuracy that on the 9th of June the service provider has not complied with, and the date of the 9th of June was not forthcoming to me by Miss Jeffries when I spoke to her on the 6th of June. She did not say to me, yes, Mr. Hussain, I have given an extension of time. I am conscious of the email that you sent me on the 26th of May requesting that extension of time. I apologize for not giving the extension of time. On the 6th of June, Miss Jeffries should have told me they've now got until the 9th of June. She refused to give me that information, and then subsequently, as you can see, that on the 9th of June or any time prior to the 9th of June, the service provider has not contacted you. So they have not provided the evidence. Yes?
So, yeah, that is correct.
Yes, okay, all right. So let's just move on from this, because obviously I'm just conscious of the time as well. And I'm just trying to state that the whole purpose of this was that this is why I've spent so much time of talking about this matter, is because how can the Ombudsman make a decision in the absence of any evidence being presented? Because unlike what you're suggesting right now, the evidence I have before me, namely the email from Miss Jeffries, seems to suggest that on the the 23rd of May, the service provider had not complied with the evidence request or provided any information. The only source of information I have now is from your word on the telephone call now after you've reviewed it, that some information was provided. You're not willing to provide me with what that information was, but whatever that information was, whether it was partial evidence or whether it was something else, that it was not clearly the evidence, because on the 2 days later, Miss Jeffries confirms to me that she's agreed to an extension of time. So clearly the service provider has not provided the evidence or complied with the evidence request. Now, subsequently, as you're aware, nobody knew nobody should have known which way the outcome of the ombudsman was going to be. However, it seems quite evident to me that everybody knew that is going to be dismissed. Even myself, I knew it as well, that it's going to be whitewashed, and hence why I'm looking to make the argument that the reason, see, the whole point of this, and I think what you're trying to ask me is that Mr. Hussain, look, we've been on the call for several times now. What are you trying to suggest? What I'm quite clearly trying to suggest here is that this aspect of the legal ombudsman was a contrivance from the beginning. And obviously what I'm trying to suggest here is that Miss Jeffries could not have known that the case would be dismissed for certainty, because if there was impartiality, if there was no contrivance, so she could not have known whether the case would have been dismissed. And if she could not have known, then neither could have the service provider have known that the case was going to be dismissed. And the reason is that should the case not have been dismissed, where would that have left Miss Jeffries and the service provider? Because on the 24th of July, the decision has been made. If the decision has been made on the 24th of July, and now we're on, the 3rd of August, you, the ombudsman, have still not received the evidence, have you? That's correct, isn't it? You, the ombudsman, that's to date, you, the ombudsman, have not received the evidence request.
No, we haven't received the evidence.
Yes. All right. So if you clearly, you've not received the evidence request because everybody knew it's going to be dismissed, so they didn't need to comply. This is where the serious aspect of your impartiality comes into play here. Because as an ombudsman, there's certain behavior or conduct and behavior that you do not know about the outcome of. All right. If, for example, and I give an analogy here, you should not know the outcome of a football game, let's just say. All right. But if I go to the bookies and I put in, a substantial amount of money on a particular outcome and I win, what are the chances that was pure luck? Or what are the chances? I should not know this. So quite clearly, if I go to the bookies and put in odds that are going to make me a multimillionaire in one bet, questions will be raised that, obviously there's something fraudulent going on here. Similarly, in a similar analogy, if the evidence has not been received by yourselves from any party, obviously we had this conversation last time, the ombudsman was not aware of, would not have accepted my evidence. They did not get any evidence from the other party to date. And how did they know that what the outcome of the decision? The only way they could have known about the ombudsman's decision to dismiss the case preemptively beforehand is if there was some foul play. That's all I'm trying to establish, is that if, for example, there was no foul play, the evidence should have been submitted.
So basically, from what you're saying is, and I get what you said, and I can kind of only imagine what you're mentioning, but from the ombudsman's dismissal, right, which states that it's from the fact of that, given what you're asking for, they would be able to come up with a reasonable, obviously, outcome for you. That's why it's been dismissed. It hasn't been dismissed on the fact of, well, we've got this evidence in and they're right and you're wrong.
No, okay.
Obviously from the letter that the ombudsman has sent to you, from the dismissal, it's from the fact of that we don't see ourselves being able to give you a reasonable resolution to what you're asking for, Mr. Hussain.
Okay, I understand. So so the ombudsman's decision is made devoid of any reviewing any evidence. Yes, that's what you're telling me. But
the dismissal was put in place based on the fact of what it is that you're asking for.
Yeah.
What is the correspondence of, what is the level of jurisdiction that we can give?
Yeah,
Given
yeah,
those facts, we've just looked at it as being, well, we're not going to be able to get what you want from the level of jurisdiction that we have.
Okay.
That's why it's been dismissed. It hasn't been dismissed on the fact of their evidence is better than your evidence.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
that's
All right.
cleared on it. It's
All right.
from the fact of what what the resolution is
yes,
that you want
yes,
out of it.
but
We're just saying that we're unable to
yes,
provide it.
but how could the service provider have known this before the event? That's what I'm trying to establish. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Dismissal was going to be
So
put in place, or
yes, how did the service provider preemptively know that in the absence of them presenting any evidence and the fact that they should not have known, the service provider should not have known whether what I have said or my private or confidential correspondence with Miss Jeffries, considering Miss Jeffries said that she's not going to be giving my information out to them and not giving their information out to me, then the question here is, how did the how did the service provider know of the outcome of the Ombudsman's decision of the 24th of July? How did they know of this several months previously?
several months. I don't understand.
Sorry, let me reiterate this. Yeah, look, as far as the service provider is concerned, in May they've asked for an extension of evidence. That's been agreed with Miss Jeffries. Okay, then as far as they're concerned, they have an obligation to comply with that request, don't they? All right, irrespective of what the outcome, because nobody should have known the outcome. If the service provider did not know the outcome of the, as you seem to be suggesting, or as being suggested, of the decision of the Ombudsman until the 24th of July, then how is it that the service provider knew preemptively that the case is going to be dismissed? And if the case is dismissed, we do not need to comply or are obliged to comply with the evidence request. This is what I'm trying to establish here, is that how did the service provider know before the 24th of July the outcome of the Ombudsman's decision? Because either they knew...
They wasn't made aware of the outcome. Because it wasn't made until the Ombudsman
yes,
made that
I know,
outcome.
but look at so why did they not oblige themselves to their obligation to comply? Because they before.
So given that is a good argument to have, and given that that's a conversation that we would be addressing, obviously with regards to the evidence from the SP, because basically Ombudsman had been already looking at this decision, and before obviously a case could have been presented, they'd already come up with a decision based on the fact of that even with an outcome of evidence, we still wouldn't have been able to provide you with an outcome.
I know. I'm just going to put that dismissal to one side. What my point is that how did the service provider know this information?
The service provider didn't know that dismissal was good.
So if
nobody knew until the Ombudsman had made that decision.
Okay.
Not even the investigator would know until the Ombudsman had made that decision. That's why it goes to a Ombudsman who's impartial from the investigator, yourself, and also the service provider, to obviously with the letter that they've sent out explain what they're going through, what they're looking through.
That information. Sorry, that information, the outcome of the Ombudsman's decision was made on the 24th of July. That's correct, isn't it?
So they sent it out on the 24th of July.
Yes. Yeah. So how did this...
going through...
So my question is that if nobody knew, then the correct course of action would have been for the service provider to comply with their obligation to the evidence request. That's all I'm trying to say. If the service provider didn't know...
that would be from the service provider, and that is where obviously that is part of obviously the development piece that we are putting for the investigation.
Yeah. Okay.
That time has
Yes. So can you understand? Do you understand my argument that if the service provider didn't know, then they would have complied with the evidence request? The reason that they did not comply with the evidence request is because they knew preemptively what the outcome of the decision would have been, and if they knew preemptively what the outcome of the decision would have been, that's fraud, isn't it? Right? Because, for example,
Mr. is saying, but what I'm saying is that hasn't happened. There's not been any information to an SP to say, look, don't send in your evidence. We're not going to need it because your case is going to be dismissed anyway.
Yes.
There can be the argument which can be saying it's been put through as a dismissal request.
Yes.
We're awaiting an ombudsman to make a decision.
Yes.
Because quite rightly, that's what you can share with them. But to suggest that we've just literally told the SP, the service provider, 4 days. Look,
Jake. The reality is that the evidence request is completely unrelated to the Ombudsman's decision, or should be completely unrelated, because the evidence request was made in April initially. An extension of time was, as far as my understanding was made until the 25th of May. Then subsequently a further extension of time has been made. Now only these extension, remember, it's what you seem to be suggesting, that nobody should know the outcome. Ms. Jeffries shouldn't know the outcome, and service provider shouldn't know the outcome, neither should I know the outcome. But can you see the conduct and behavior of Miss Jeffries is a line with her conduct and behavior is more indicative and evidential of them obviously knowing, because let's just say for argument's sake, that what I'm saying is the truth. Well, namely, the outcome of the investigation to be discontinued was known, was pre-commissioned, let's just say. So everybody knew that it's going to be dismissed. So if everybody knew that this case is going to be dismissed, can you understand now this gives a correct perspective on the conduct and behavior of both Miss Jeffries and the service provider? Because according to the investigator, Miss Jeffries, she is the investigator and she does not know the outcome of the ombudsman, or shouldn't know the outcome of the ombudsman. But what she is doing is quite clearly advantaging the service provider by initially agreeing to an extension of time and telling me that it's on the 25th of May, all right, and then confirming to me on the 6th of June when I had a conversation with her that she's further extended it. She needed to extend it as far long enough until the outcome of the ombudsman, all right, but and hence why she could not give me the date, hence why I'm suggesting that she could not give me the date. And it's not because, well, you've agreed to me that she should have given me the date of when the extension was, and you do not know why she's not giving you that date extension. I'm suggesting to you that the reason that she could not give me that date is because of an element of deception and fraud taking place, because she did not know when the ombudsman would get back with the decision. She needed to give the extension of time long enough in order to help and facilitate the service provider not to present the evidence. This aspect of the evidence, I know that what you're now suggesting, that the ombudsman's made their decision not based on the evidence but based on what I had said and so on and so forth, and that's something that I said I would be looking into, so speaking to you about, hence why I asked you to review what the evidence, what the ombudsman's decision was. But at this moment in time, it's undeniable that the decision should not be known by either Miss Jeffries or the service provider. But from the conduct and behavior and the actions which are not clear to you or me, is why had Mrs. Jeffries agreed to a 5-month extension, 5-month evidence request extension till the 9th of June? She's not informed me about this. She's told me the 25th, when I've obviously chased her up about this on the 25th. She's told me she's not received the evidence, and she's given them an extension of time. When I spoke to her on the 6th, she's not mentioned the date of the 9th. She just said, oh, I can't give you that date. And the reason that she can't give me me that date is because obviously there is no extension of time date, and in the absence of there being an extension of time date, evidence should have been received by the Ombudsman prior to the 24th of July. Irrespective of whether the Ombudsman was relying upon that evidence or not, the fact that the service provider has not given that evidence to yourself is the only reason that they would not give that evidence to yourself or comply with their obligations, considering that they had requested an extension of time on the 3rd of May to the 9th of June. They've not complied with the evidence request, which you've confirmed to me today that they've not even complied. And now, given that the Ombudsman made a decision, they don't need to comply. The bottom line is that this has all been orchestrated by yourselves in order to basically get a free jail card for the service provider. But irrespective of what my assessment is of the subject, the bottom line is that why would the service provider not comply with the evidence request or before the 24th of July? Why? The only reason that they would not comply with the evidence request is because they knew beforehand. No, there's no evidence here of anybody's, but their behavior is indicative of them knowing. Because if
any communications that would have been sent out or by phone would have been noted on the system, but we've not got anything to suggest there was a call made or even evidence of emails being sent to him to advise of that dismissal, because the investigator wouldn't have known what the dismissal outcome would be.
Then if both investigator, I'm suggesting that the investigator, look, what I'm suggesting here is quite clearly that the investigator and the service provider knew of the outcome before the Ombudsman's made his decision because of their questionable conduct and behavior. Like I said, if, for example, Miss Jeffries had not given them an extension of time of 5 weeks, had not misled me deliberately, and the service provider not proceeded to provide the evidence, then that would have been quite clearly, objectively showing that they do not know the outcome. Nobody knows the outcome. But can you understand, their behavior is indicative of them knowing what the outcome is, because to date they've not submitted the evidence request. Just the example I gave you, if I go to the bookies, put down a £1 million bet, all right, on the outcome of a game, nobody's gonna say, oh, that was just a good luck, all right. It's highly unlikely that I probably had some insider information. Now, insider information is not always given, is it? We can't always have evidence of fraud, because can you understand, if there is fraud, can you understand that the people would not want to leave a trail or evidence behind. So but you cannot escape the fact that the service provider to date has not complied with the evidence request. And I would suggest that the reason that they've not complied is because they knew beforehand. And the reason that they knew beforehand is because of fraud or deception or malevolence taking place. Now, you're going to say to me, no, Mr. Hussain, as many other people do, and tell me there is no evidence for that. And that is just such a stupid statement to make. Nobody breaks into somebody's house leaving them evidence. Just imagine this. Just imagine I come to your house, I break in, I steal your items, yes, and you said to me, make the allegation that, oh, I broke into your house to steal something, and I'll say, haha, you got no evidence. Where are your fingerprints? There's no fingerprints in there, all right, because knowing the fact that I wore gloves, haha, there's no blood samples in there, knowing the fact that if there was any damage made or blood taken out, I would have covered that up. Just because there is no evidence to show that I broke into your property does not mean that I did not break into your property and steal your items. One of the telltale signs is that your VCR, all right, all of a sudden ends up in the local pawn shop. All right, you go to the local pawn shop and you recognize that's your VCR, because when you, a couple of years ago, when you got into a fight with your partner, or let's say you smashed something on the VCR, it's got a dent in it, so you know that's yours. All right, the pawn. I can kind of gather where you're going from this. My reply would be, though, but as I said to you, if an investigator or an SP is not been given a decision because it's in the Ombudsman's hands to make that decision, to
how would she be able to tell the SP that it's going to be dismissed when she doesn't even know herself?
So,
and how would she be able to make that communication if all the communications are shown with the evidence? Because remember, we're talking about the 25th, and I can't see any evidence of correspondence from her speaking to anybody. I'm speaking to
that was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Well, that there was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Because you seem to be suggesting that there's no communication, oral communication taking place. However, you've just agreed with me earlier on that when Miss Jeffries has told me that she's spoken to the service provider in an email to me on the 25th, that there's no log of her speaking to anybody. So if, for example, and I'm not suggesting this at all, because obviously it's just speculation, but if Miss Jeffries had told the service provider, you don't need to worry about it, I'm just suggesting this. If the service provider said, look, here's £50, just end this investigation. I'm not saying that that's happened. And the Miss Jeffries had this communication. Can you not understand that Miss Jeffries would be the first person to ensure that that's not recorded anywhere? Can you understand that she would not be looking to have that logged on your systems? And then you can say, well, Mr. Hussain, Miss Jeffries does not have the right as a service user or as a user of the system to delete logs on our system. Well, there's no stopping.
Everything's logged on the system, so if there's any deletions from there, will be showing up on the history. If any alterations are made on our system,
so
if you was to delete it, it would still show a history of deletion.
Okay, that's fair enough. But what's stopping Miss Jeffries ringing the service provider on the mobile phone?
But I don't understand what she would be getting from a service.
Well, I said
no. So what you're saying is
I'm not saying anything, Mr. Jeffries. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Just to go on that, just to get on that side. As I said to you, so if somebody, say we've got two people involved in it, so we've got an investigator and a service provider, right? There's an outcome which is going to be, which has been put into an ombudsman. The ombudsman has not spoken to the service provider or basically spoken to the investigator regarding what their response is or what their decision is. So during that time, if Sean was to contact an SP to say, right, it's going to be dismissed, give me a bribe of that amount, this ombudsman still hasn't even made a decision yet. So there's still a 50-50 chance that this case would not be dismissed and the investigation would still continue. To put that all into perspective, if then that case was to not be dismissed, the amount of risk needed to perform something like that, and I don't know what outcome would come of it. Like I can see where I can,
Mr. Tutu, what I'm trying to say is that you cannot simply state because there is no evidence that therefore means that no malevolence has taken place. What I would suggest to you is that there is no accounting for fraud or malevolence. Is there? Like, for example, I mean, this is a kind of an argument that I run with many people, which, if you permit me, I'm just going to explain to you. Given the name that your name is Ossie Tutu, I presume, and it's a presumption here because you shouldn't presume anything, I presume that you come from the BAM community, which is Black, Asian, ethnic, and minority. I'm assuming that, okay? So often, being a member of the BAM community, as if you are a member of the BAM community, you are fully aware that living in this white, indigenous, Caucasian country, that you or I would be subjected to racism. All right, would that be fair assessment that if you have a member of the coloured people, such as myself, I can confirm to you I'm Pakistani, Asian, I've got brown skin. I'm not making any suggestions about the colour of your skin, but if you are somebody of who has black skin or is of the BAM community, would it be fair to say that you would be subjected to racism?
Would I be subjected to racism? In what aspect?
No, I'm just saying, generally speaking, if you were white, you would not be subjected to racism by white people, would you?
Mr. Hussain, when it comes to speaking regarding discrimination or racial views, for me, I will say this: I'm part of what is called a race network within the organisation. I'm actually co-chair of the race network. So when it comes to racism towards any people of white skin as well, it can be subjected to them receiving racism.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say I don't know
what am I going with this?
You're getting from.
Okay.
So are you saying that it's been based?
No, that's excellent, because you've just explained to me that you're part of some initiative to fight against discrimination, yes? And that discrimination can be subjected to anybody. It doesn't matter about the color of your skin. One form of discrimination is racism against the minority groups, yes? And what I'm saying, you would be best able to advise me. So the question I ask, let's just say, for argument's sake, that you're a white person, all right, and I seem to be feeling that you're being racist towards me, and I say to you the direct question, are you a racist? Now, assuming that you're not a racist, what would your answer be?
If you were to accuse me of being a racist and I wasn't a racist, well, my answer would be that I'm not a racist.
Yes, just stop there. Now, assuming that you are a racist, and I ask you the question, are you a racist? What would your answer be?
Well, I don't know what the suggestion of the question is. Are you accusing me for being a racist?
I'm not accusing. I'm giving you an example. I've just explained to you earlier on, that
if I was a racist and then you were to ask me if I was a racist, what would my answer be?
Yes.
But that would be a perception of whoever you're asking that question to.
Okay.
If you're asking that question to a person who formally is saying that they are racist and they're fully proud of being racist, and they have a negative opinion towards any person of an ethnic minority, then they would probably say that I don't like people from, or don't accept people from certain minorities.
No, that's not the question, is it?
It could be a perception that somebody could be.
We're not talking about perception. No, but let me just stop you there. Let me just stop you there. Assuming that you are Caucasian, which it's an assumption, isn't it? Because I don't think you are Caucasian.
I'm not. I'm a black.
Okay. I assumed as much, but we can't assume anything these days. Assuming that you're a white person, which I know you're not, and you are not assuming that you're not a racist, and I ask you the question, are you a racist? What is your answer?
If you're asking it to a white person.
No.
I'm not a racist. Mr. Hussain, I don't know.
Well, if you just.
Where we're going.
I'm just trying to explain. I'm just trying to explain to you, because obviously I've just said assuming that you're a white man, so you're a white man now, yeah? Okay, assuming this, and assuming that you're not a racist, I ask you a question, are you a racist? What is your answer?
I say no.
Okay, now, another assumption, you're assuming you're a white man, and you are a racist, and I ask you the question, are you a racist? What is the answer?
Well, if I am a racist and I'm happy being a racist, I would say yes, I am.
Come on, Mister.
Yeah.
Come on, Mister.
Well,
I see two.
The point I'm because you're saying it from a perception.
No.
You're saying it to me. So for example, if because I don't. We are.
Yes, we are.
Going off
yes.
the topic here because we're trying to explain. You've got a perception that you believe that the investigator and the service provider.
No.
I'm just going off what you say.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Just don't misquote me, sir. But what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say. All right, if you listen to me, what I'm trying to say is that if you're a racist, your answer is indistinguishable.
You're not going to say you're a racist.
That's right. You're not going to say you're a racist and your answer is exactly the same. And the reason that you're not going to say that you're a racist is because it's against the law, isn't it? All right. You'd be stupid even if you were racist. You would not answer that question saying, yes, I am a racist. Because as soon as you say that I'm a racist, I call the police and have you arrested, you go face some jail time. Yes? So you know the fact that you cannot, the reason I asked that question is that there's no distinction between asking somebody whether you're a racist or not. The answer is always the same. No, I'm not. Therefore, can you conclude that the person is not racist? You must look to find other indicators of racism, all right? And the reason I asked you this question is because as somebody who comes from a minority background or black background like yourself, you simply do not rely on the answers people give because people lie. And the reason people lie is because of the fact that they're trying to cover their own backs. So they're trying to do something wrong. So but the point of what I'm trying to make is that just simply because you say something, all right, or does not get to the truth. Now, we've had this trajectory of conversation because of the fact that you're saying that, oh, Miss Jeffries wouldn't have done this. I'm not making any suggestions of her being racist towards me or anybody being racist towards me. What I'm trying to suggest is that clearly there's collusion and malevolence. And for you to say that, oh, just because they said that they didn't do it, does not mean that they didn't do it. And hence why we had this conversation that you're saying, well, if they were supposed to be doing it, then there would have been a log of the call, and I can't see a log of the call or anything like this. And I said, well, frankly, they don't need to use your systems. If they're going to do something malevolent, the first thing they would do, knowing the fact that the calls are going to be recorded, they would not use the call system. But I'm not even suggesting that there is a collusion between the service provider or Miss Jeffries. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm saying is that is a possibility, because in the absence of this, how could both of these people be advantaged in this manner? Namely, Miss Jeffries has not had the opportunity to have her request met, and the service provider, who has mostly been advantaged by this, because the last time that they gave you some information was on the 23rd of May. They've clearly been advantaged. And as moving on from this topic now, as you can see, I'm not suggesting that Miss Jeffries has done anything wrong here. All right, I'm just trying to explain to you that this whole aspect of dealing with the Ombudsman has been a contrivance, and hence why I have taken the time to forward to you certain emails. All right, those certain emails outside of the investigation quite clearly evidence the fact that my mother has died under unusual circumstances. She's died as a result of malevolence and collusion by several parties, and I've made that position quite clear, not only to yourselves or as the Ombudsman, to various other people, that this has only occurred because of a mass conspiracy. Now, often when you say the word conspiracy, people take an aversion to that oh, there's some, this person has conspiratorial mental health problems, tin hat, foiled hat. What I'm trying to say here is that this aspect of coming to the Ombudsman is meant to be impartial. And unimpartial, it has to be impartial, because otherwise, if you're not impartial, you lose all legitimacy. You have no legitimacy if you're not impartial. Yes, but more importantly, not only the Ombudsman, in this society, the judiciary by their very definitions have to be impartial. So I've made the higher claim that there is collusion between the judiciary, namely the High Court justices, in this case, colluding and conspiring in order for my detriment. And the reason I gave you that diatribe of speaking about racism and so on and so forth, about asking a person, are you a racist, and whether they're a racist or not, the answer will always be the same, is because when you have, for me personally, I need to understand it's not just racism. Racism is only one element of discrimination. You do understand that there's sexual discrimination, disability discrimination, and a whole a myriad of other discriminations. One of the ways that I'm clearly stating that I've been discriminated against, not racially, but in this process, but coming to the legal Ombudsman, because there has been an element of collusion and conspiracy, and an element of discrimination. So that's not the people that discriminate do not leave evidence behind. Particularly, they do not confess to being discriminatory. They simply deny it, as so has the service provider simply denied everything. What I must look to do is, and as the reason I ask you to empathize with me as a person of color, is that when you are subjected to racism, you have an innate ability to know that you're being subjected to racism, as an example. And the reason that happens is when you're out with let's just say, with some people and with colleagues and friends, and somebody is racist, it's not that what they call you. They don't use the N-word. Right? They'd be stupid to use the N-word. It's that just because somebody does not use the N-word does not mean that you're not being subjected to discrimination.
Which I can see what you're saying, Mr. Hussain.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm just obviously jumping in is because obviously just of the matter of time here as well.
Okay.
So
what
I want to make sure is that we get into, because I know that obviously this is going to be escalated to a stage one.
Yes.
But at this indication, what I've explained and asked before is previously is what is it that you're looking for an outcome?
Okay. Well,
so
okay.
We can get this moving along
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, yes, I'm conscious of the time as well, and I'm grateful for your time. But the reason I was explaining the aspect of discrimination, if I can just finish this point, is not what you
Yep.
say, it's not what you do, it's sometimes what you don't do. Okay, so
Yeah.
the
Of
aspect
course.
of aspect of discrimination, obviously I've been in a group of good friends, or in a group of people, and the person that's a racist, or which I know is a racist, is not going to call names to me. He's simply, everything I
Yeah.
seem to suggest or contribute to the conversation is simply disregarded or belittled or diminished. Often, to understand you're being subjected to discrimination, it's not the commission of an act, it's the omission of an act. That's all I'm trying to establish here. In order for me to show that I'm being subjected to discrimination, or there's a conspiracy or something like this, all I need to show is that, first of all, have I been disadvantaged? Number one. And number two, was there an omission? All right. And under these circumstances, because the legal ombudsman effectively is denying me a service, because obviously this service is open to everybody, the legal ombudsman has made a decision, and obviously we've not even touched upon that decision by the legal ombudsman, but I am now being effectively denied a service, and the reason I believe I'm being denied a service is because I'm being discriminated against. And what that particular discrimination takes is the factor of whether racism, whether sexism, whether ageism, whether disability, is not something that I'm looking to quantify. What I'm looking to identify here is that, am I being subjected to a form of discrimination here? And that discrimination is a lack of service by the ombudsman. Now this brings us nicely onto moving on to the decision of the ombudsman. Now, quickly before I'm just conscious of the time. You have had an opportunity to read the ombudsman's decision, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, and as you can see, the Ombudsman reiterates what Miss Jeffries has stated regarding outcomes and perceptions and so on and so forth. Okay, obviously, the Ombudsman, unbeknown to themselves, have obviously slipped up, and as you can see by speaking to me several hours now, that I have a very keen sense of a very keen mind and attention to detail. Now, obviously, it's quite evident to me that this Ombudsman has had their services commissioned in order to whitewash this investigation. Hence why my present opinion and perceptions have always been that Miss Jeffries is not taking bribes from the service provider to the end of this investigation. It would not be in her interest to do so. All right, I'm not even suggesting that. What I am suggesting, that Miss Jeffries has been ordered by the ombudsman to end this investigation under any pretext. Hence why I've highlighted to yourself that it was a premature attempt at ending the investigation, by the 11th of May, when no evidence had been received by the other parties, and it was solely reliant upon my opinions. And quite clearly, in the previous conversations that we've had, you've confirmed to me my opinions should not be. I should not be discriminated against for expressing my opinions, should I? And all I've done after reviewing the two emails that I sent two emails on the 4th of May to Miss Jeffries and the legal ombudsman, quite clearly providing and the reason for me to do so was simply so that the investigator, any impartial investigator, is fully afforded the outcome, the background and circumstances of my situation and circumstances with evidence. I should not be discriminated against that. However, from reading, or the ombudsman did me the courtesy of actually audio recording the response letter, which I've had now time to review. I just wanted to touch upon this. Obviously, can you advise me what is my next step to challenge the ombudsman's decision, or is it the case that the matter cannot be challenged?
The challenge you can put through, by all means, you can put through a service. This is what we're doing, escalating your complaint. Now, obviously, you can challenge on the case that you still don't feel happy with what's been given, what's the decision that's been given out, by all means. Now, like I said, the organisation will not normally consider reopening a complaint that has been dismissed unless the circumstances are exceptional. So, I mean, for this, by all means, what I can do and what I'm looking to do is escalate this over to our customer experience specialist to go through this. Obviously, on the factors that you brought up, which are big allegations, and they will proceed further into this for you. And obviously, given the fact that what you're asking for is to appeal against what the Ombudsman has given you, and for a full look over what the process of the investigation is to start from. So from that matter, what I would advise is that it does move to a stage one, which obviously from this call I can then push it onto a stage one, given the information that you've given. We've gone through, and then they will get in touch with you and then go through the process of the complaint, what it is that it feels like it has been, obviously it's been compromised. If there is any case of that, they feel there's been any impartialness put on there could be a review to look to review the case itself. I say the word could, because depending on what the outcome is, as you should see at the end of your letter that was sent by the Ombudsman, it does say, I think reiterates what I've mentioned about the organisation don't normally reopen a complaint if it's been dismissed, but as it said here, unless the circumstances are obviously exceptional. So from there, obviously you're bringing across this service complaint. I will put in there that you're looking to get this reopened as a factor of one of the resolutional parts, but also to look at the investigation as to how the SP finding out that from what you believe that the SP knew about a dismissal with Sean Jeffries, given the fact that the evidence hadn't been received, also misleading with the information that was given for the timescale date. As I've said to you at the beginning, I'm not here trying to say what you're saying is completely wrong and everything like that. I'm here trying to gather what is it that we can do to see if we can look to resolve it. So from the matters of moving forward, what I would propose is, because this is looking to go to a next stage, it would need to lead to a stage one.
Okay, well, I think we just need to be slightly clear here of what I'm asking for, because obviously there's been some confusion in the past. Now, my understanding is that I can make service level complaints regarding employees. All right, so Miss Jeffries is an employee. How she's handled the situation with myself, I've already raised that with yourself as a level 1 service complaint. Obviously, the outcomes are
stage 0. That would be. I'm a stage 0.
Okay.
Stage 1.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, so that can be escalated regarding the conduct and behavior of employees. All right. But what I'm suggesting here is not the conduct and behavior of the employee, but because obviously I've not spoken to the Ombudsman. What I'm asking is here on this question is that in case that there's been a final decision by the Ombudsman, I'm asking what routes are available to me to challenge the findings of the Ombudsman. Because on the letter that's been provided, obviously I heard it. I didn't read it, but irrespective, it's articulated the same things. It states that under exceptional circumstances will the matter be reconsidered. Now, I obviously under these circumstances, I am looking to challenge the Ombudsman's decision, because we don't have any time now to go through the Ombudsman's letter or the decision that they've made, but they've made some highly critical mistakes, or not mistakes, or faux pas, or admissions, which upon inspection would quite clearly evidence that they have had their services compromised, namely that the Ombudsman, and remember here I'm raising a complaint effectively against is it Paul McFadden, the Ombudsman? Sorry,
the chief Ombudsman.
Yes, what's the name of the chief Ombudsman?
Paul McFadden.
Yes, what I'm suggesting here is that my investigation has been compromised by Mr. McFadden upon the emails that I have sent, and that this has been the investigation has been dismissed not by the investigator, but instructed to the investigator by the chief ombudsman to dismiss this investigation. So that's a far more serious of an allegation than just simply some employee not behaving themselves, because obviously the suggestion that Ms. Jeffries has done this with malicious intent, I don't believe that Ms. Jeffries has acted with malicious intent. However, I do believe that the Chief Ombudsman has acted with malicious intent because everybody else is subordinate and subservient to the Chief Ombudsman, aren't they? And so equally, that would be correct in that you are subordinate and subservient to the Chief Ombudsman in your role as working for the legal ombudsman, aren't you?
Say that again, please.
So I said you are subservient and subordinate to the instructions or directions of the chief executive officer, namely the legal ombudsman Paul McFadden.
Yes, the directions are put in. We have scheme rules that we have in place.
Yes.
That are available on our website.
Yes.
And the policies and principles
Yes.
that we put in place. Now, if you're, like I said, your complaint seems to be about that, and that's why you would need to go escalate to a further level on that
Yes.
that matter, because it seems like, as I said, I would be doing it injustice if it was to be at a stage 0.
Yes.
The complaint has to get escalated because it's not. You're complaining about the policy of the system which you feel has been compromised. And I'm not going to turn around and say to you whether it's right or wrong.
Yes, of course you can. Yes.
Because it's your perception.
Yes.
So what I will do from here is that I will put obviously a resolution to look at the parts of challenging the decision that's been made from the Ombudsman, because you believe with the processes that have been put in place, and also for the factors of your case and how the decision has been made, has not been able, you feel it's been discriminated against you. Also from the factors of how misleading certain parts of the investigation has led you to believe, which you've stated to me, that there's been some conspiracy between the investigator and the SP.
No, sorry, I've not said that. I've not said that there's been some conspiracy. Just to clarify, I have not. That was only, I was giving an analogy or an example.
I was going to put that in, Mr. Hussain, to advise that you believe the cases of it, because given what's happened, it's made you believe that has been the case.
No, I don't even. Sorry to interrupt. I don't believe that has been the case. But all I'm saying is that I believe that the service provider and the investigator knew preemptively what the outcome was going to be, and their conduct and behavior has been in line with them knowing preemptively what the outcome would have been, and they should not have known what the outcome would have been. Hence why I'm looking to question effectively their conduct and behavior. And what that conduct and behavior basically is giving me misleading. Miss Jeffries giving me misleading information regarding the extension of time for the evidence request, and also for the service provider not to have submitted the evidence request prior to the ombudsman's decision. All this time seems to be suggesting that the integrity of the impartiality of the legal ombudsman has been compromised. Obviously, I do not have any evidence of this. However, but I have plenty of omission, or as evidence that obviously at this stage I'm in a situation where the ombudsman. I am now, just for your reference, Mr. Ossi, I've spent over 22 hours on the telephone call. That's 22 hours of my life that I've given up in order to deal with this matter, and to be robbed effectively that this investigation is going to be ended to the advantage of the service provider, I believe is theft upon my resources. And obviously I take that situation quite seriously. So what I am suggesting is that the integrity of the impartiality of the legal ombudsman as an institution has been compromised. Now that suggestion that the integrity of an organization has been compromised cannot be instigated by Miss Jeffries, who's an employee. Neither you, Mr. Ositutu, can undermine the integrity of the entire institution on your own without it being for your personal benefit. All right. I believe that the integrity of the independence of the legal ombudsman has been compromised under an external influence, which has then resulted in the shenanigans that have taken place in this investigation or my raising of these complaints. The reason why the Ombudsman, I believe, has dismissed this case, and the reason why the service provider has acted and behaved in this manner of not submitting the evidence as required of them, and the reason behind Miss Jeffries' preemptive instigation of having this seen by the Ombudsman, and the comments that I've received from the Ombudsman's letter seemed for me to quite clearly show, or I can quite clearly evidence and prove that the reason that these anomalies are happening, because they're all anomalies, aren't they? That normally the investigation should have proceeded without any concern being raised by the investigator at that early stage. It's an anomaly that Miss Jeffries would look to do so simply when I've looked to respond to an evidence request. It's an anomaly that the conduct and behavior of the service provider asking initially for a 5-week extension, Miss Jeffries telling me that she's only agreed to until the 25th of May. That's an anomaly, and it's this combination of anomalies. Now, one single anomaly can happen due to human error, can happen to be genuinely mistake, or that it can be argued that one of these anomalies, all right, is as a result of just system failure, or there's no malevolence in it. What I'm suggesting is that all these anomalies taken holistically from a step back quite clearly would show that these anomalies are as a result of malevolence, not simple mistakes. So there's a clear stratagem and design from the beginning, and I have known of this stratagem of design simply when I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May, because her conduct and behavior at that stage, when she started to proposition me by why am I doing this, some of the things that she had said, which are in isolation don't seem quite innocuous, taken holistically, and 2020 in hindsight, quite clearly led me to believe, or I had an inclination that there was something malevolent taking place here when I spoke to Miss Jeffries on the 4th of May, that there was some, and even before that. But so that is what I'm suggesting, is that the integrity and the impartiality of the legal ombudsman has been compromised through an external agency, and that external agency, I am not suggesting, is the service provider, and hence why I have proceeded to provide you with further evidence. So that's what I'm saying. Is that understood?
Yeah, that's understood, because that's what I'm just obviously saying to you, that it would need to get escalated to the level to be able to have that kind of impact that you're looking for in that time of investigation. Now, like I said, I'm very conscious of the time. So, is there anything else that you would like me to add before obviously this gets escalated any further?
Okay, well, obviously, I just need to know about what time frames we're working with here, because as you can appreciate, this matter was first brought to your attention in January. The Ombudsman now has, with the length of time, has now provided their decision. I'm obviously looking to challenge their decision. I'm making this is what I am alleging. I am alleging this, this is not something I'm going to be vague about. I'm alleging that as a result of the 2 emails that I sent, and can I just ask, as a side note, have you had a time to review those 2 emails that I forwarded to you of the 4th of May? One I sent, I think, around about 5 o'clock, and one sent around about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, the one with the 4th of May, which was the letter to at the 4th of May at 10:49.
I sent that yesterday. So you had a chance to...
You sent it, and then you had a message connected to that from the Sunday, the 27th of March 2022.
27th of March?
You sent me an email.
Yes.
On Wednesday, the 2nd, which you went over. You also included the Thursday, the 4th of May email as a forwarded email to that, and attached to it as well, not attached, but also within the email, there was a further forwarded message from Sunday, the 27th of March, but I think that was to a list of different...
Yes, okay. So that was email. So that was an email sent to you yesterday, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and I also sent you an email when we last spoke. I think on the 19th of June, you were going on holiday. After that call, I'd sent you an email, and that email was simply forwarding the email that I had sent to Miss Jeffries and the Ombudsman of the 4th of May.
Yeah, that was sent on Wednesday, the 19th of July, at about 5
Yes.
minutes to
Yes.
4:53.
So both of those emails sent to you yesterday on the 19th of July are forwarding emails that I had sent to Miss Jeffries and the Ombudsman on the 4th of May, aren't they?
And Paul McFadden.
Yeah, and Paul McFadden, yes. Now, so can you understand that your Ombudsman response of the 24th of July makes absolutely no mentions of this? Okay. However, and this is something that obviously I've taken issue with, is that they do mention certain things in that letter which you've read by the Ombudsman's case dismissal approval is which are not relevant. Okay, they go on to state that I've lodged a complaint with the official solicitor. Now, I can tell you that I at no stage give that information to the Ombudsman or Miss Jeffries at any stage. All right, they've also made obviously you see what I've done here is I've provided you as the legal ombudsman with background information. All right, as a perspective. All right, so that letter, the emails that I sent on the 4th of May have got nothing to do with this investigation, but they provide the context and background of the things that I'd been suffering from. All right, but they are outside of the scope of what needs to be investigated by yourself. And the reason is quite clear to me that the reason I've said that is to provide you with correct perspective and context. But they are obviously not to be relied upon solely. What needs to be relied upon is obviously the evidence and the evidence request and the facts before you in regards to the specifics of the 20 complaints that I've lodged. The Ombudsman equally is yabbering on about, and forgive my terminology of the word yabbering on about, why are they talking about what the findings of the courts were regarding my mental capacity, which we know it's not relevant to this, and all sorts of other stuff. So can you understand? So equally, when the Ombudsman has looked to dismissed this case, they have relied upon information that is irrelevant to the scope of the inquiry. So they've relied upon external information, which at the top of my head is the ombudsman. I think it's a lady ombudsman. It's not Mr. Paul McFadden. His junior, no doubt, have gone on to relay information regarding, we're aware of the fact that you've tried to make information. You've complained to the Information Commissioner's Office on one particular aspect. I feel highly discriminatory, which on the surface of it does not sound, it sounds quite innocuous, is in the letter. Is it not clear that the Ombudsman has stated that my intentions of bringing this matter to yourself is with the strategy of getting information from the solicitor, and therefore this would be an incorrect use of your service because of the legal ombudsman, because I'm effectively using it as a fishing exercise. Do you remember reading this?
Hello?
Yes?
From the part of the information that the ombudsman has sent. So,
yes.
I mean, so are we talking regarding what the case decision is as it stands? Because
no.
Remember, I can't go into details regarding the case. I can only go into details of the service that's been.
No. What I'm saying is that you've read the ombudsman's decision, haven't you?
Letter.
Yes,
right.
that letter. That letter.
I've still got it here. So which parts are you?
What I'm referring to is when the ombudsman's letter states that Mr. Hussain is trying to do a fishing exercise.
The ombudsman's letter to yourself?
Yes, well, the ombudsman's decision to myself and the other party, or the final decision of the 24th of July. In that letter, it states that Mr. Hussain is effectively utilizing, or I'm paraphrasing here, but it talks about a fishing exercise that I'm trying to get some information from the service provider and utilizing this as a process.
Right, so from this, from the paragraph which says this organisation can't investigate allegations of corruption, conspiracy or murder, I would affirm that you should, that such serious allegations are not within our adjudication. later,
Yes.
and a criminal allegation would be
Yes.
for another agency such as
Yes.
the police to consider.
Yes. No, but it talks about a phishing exercise. It says that I'm trying.
Which
I don't have it.
paragraph are you going on?
I don't have it in front of me. But are you not able to do a search for the word phishing exercise? Because remember, I did not read. I did not read this letter. I had heard it.
Right. So I would like to explain. So this paragraph would like to explain the service we provide in the depth of in the determination of the service complaint is a free service. It is unreasonable and inappropriate that our process is to use as a forerunning to pre-action protocols for professional neglect claims. Now, we are an independent and impartial organisation,
Yes.
and it does use the word. I consider that the use of our services as an alternative to a correct pre-action protocol and as a phishing exercise is inappropriate.
Yes.
Furthermore, it is not the correct forum
Yes.
which will obtain information from the firm
Yes.
where such
Okay.
request has already been declined.
Yes. Okay. So it's that bit. That bit. Why is, first of all, that is that aspect, the phishing exercise, that they seem to be suggesting that I'm utilizing your services in order to have a phishing exercise, in order to get information from the service provider that have already previously been declined. Now that comment, okay, is a highly prejudicial comment to make, because you're making certain assumptions about my intentions, which you do not know about my intentions, number one. And number two is the fact that, so what you seem to be suggesting is that I'm doing something wrong here. The thing is that this is my information, all right? And it is that aspect that I'm taking exception to, is that, you see, the Ombudsman is yabbering on. What's happened here? They cut off. I think it's just cut off because of the call. Been on the call for 3 hours, I think. The call just got ended. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes for him to call me back. Okay, so let's just give you a couple of minutes for him to call me back. If not, we'll have to rearrange. Oh, hello.
Hello. Is it possible to speak to Mr. Hussain, please?
Yeah, I think we just got cut off.
Yeah, the line just went dead there.
Yeah.
Just so I can make sure that I'm speaking to yourself, can you just confirm your postcode, your email address, and your date of birth?
Yes, it's Mr. Hussain, BD24RT, date of birth 22nd of the 2nd, 77, and email address is fatehbegum@gmail.com.
Thank you very much. Sorry, our line got cut off.
Yes.
There.
So what I was saying is that, can you see these extra information is highly prejudicial as far as I'm concerned, because obviously, can you understand that this information that the Ombudsman is now relaying to me would have no doubt been would have been relayed to me at the early stages of the investigation, with Miss Jeffries saying what we can or we cannot do. All right, so quite clearly that was made available. That information was I was made aware of and available to me at the start of this investigation. For the Ombudsman to reiterate or repeat, though, that at this stage is, highly discriminatory, because what you're trying to say, I didn't know this. Obviously, the suggestion seems to be that I did not know this information. All right, and that you're now telling me this, and the reality is that the focus of that letter should have been quite clearly focused in on what the grounds are of being dismissed. Now, I don't think that's been the case, but the suggestions that seem to be made that I am misusing this service as a phishing exercise, and what gets me is that the terminology that you're using as a phishing exercise, what exactly am I doing here requesting information that I've given to the service provider? The reality is that, and I've made this allegation directly to the service provider, I've effectively been used as a benefit mule All right, that is a very serious allegation as well. I've effectively had my legal aid, which I'm entitled to because I'm on, on appropriate benefits, utilized for the benefit of the service provider. I've effectively been, used as a benefit mule for the service provider in order for them to make money out of me. All I'm asking for is the information that I've given to them, all right, to be handed back to me. That cannot be classified as a phishing exercise. And for any impartial person to make that value judgment quite clearly shows me a level of clear discrimination. They're not in a position to make value judgments about my intentions. What they are in a position to do as an quote unquote independent person is to look at the facts. All right, did I say I'm utilizing this as a phishing exercise? All I've ever done is try to be open and transparent. I have quite clearly made Ms. Jeffries aware that I do fully intend to take litigation action. So what? That's irrelevant, isn't it? That's irrelevant information to your role as the legal ombudsman. All right, it's got nothing to do with yourself. I'm just telling you that that's what I'm going to do. It seems to me that anything that I'm saying or doing is then being twisted around and thrown back in my face, and then you're saying to me that that's not discriminatory or prejudicial or not prejudicial or discriminatory. It is evident from the letter itself that the ombudsman had said. I could make a very strong argument that inevitably shows the discrimination from that letter. And so obviously I wanted to have an opportunity to challenge the letter itself. So we're moving away from the service complaint of Ms. Jeffries or anything else regarding the investigation, simply focusing in on that letter that's been sent to me. Obviously I look to challenge that because that's quite clearly a contrivance, because obviously they're making certain allegations or certain statements or conjecturing certain things that have no foundation to do. So obviously in that letter they talk about, oh well, we know the fact that the judge has agreed that you lack capacity, and that's something that we're not want to get involved in and stuff, and that's not our job to do in our jurisdiction. The question is that, do you think I did not know what your jurisdiction was? I made it very clear what your jurisdiction is. It was made very clear to me what your jurisdiction is, what you're looking to investigate. From the offset, Miss Jeffries had told me that the maximum that you're going to be able to find the other party, because obviously there has to be a financial consideration. They've told me that it's maximum £50,000, which was made clear to me. I explained to Miss Jeffries that compares nothing to the loss of my mother's life, and obviously I will be taking legal action regarding this matter. Why would my comments, why would my opinions, why would my openness and honesty with the legal ombudsman then be utilized and weaponized to effectively find another pretext to end this investigation? Quite clearly, the dismissal letter received sent by the ombudsman is highly prejudicial, and I'm looking to challenge this directly. So in this regard, I wanted to ask you that how can I challenge this? Because ultimately, I believe that both Miss Jeffries and the ombudsman, the lady ombudsman, is taking instructions from the chief ombudsman, Paul McFadden, who is looking to sabotage and undermine this investigation because they've had their services, compromised and their independent integrity undermined. And that's what all I wanted to ask.
So, I mean, from your points and raising that complaint, this is where I'm obviously saying that as a point of following the process, because the process has been followed in the scheme rules, there's nothing I can do from a stage 0 point of view. So from your matters, because it has to be escalated, all I can say is that your matters will be forwarded on to, will be escalated to a stage 1. From that point, that is where they would be able to go into more detail on what aspects can be looked at and investigated as to what can be changed. Because they are, and quite rightly so, obviously the allegations that you've made are something which has to be taken everything taken seriously, but taken to a certain level of authority to be looked at. Because this is not just a factor of where you're mentioning, there's been slight kind of, I'm just unhappy about the outcome. The allegations that you're making, which you're quite right to make any allegations if you feel that way, are seriously of a scope of the whole
Yes.
company, organisation,
Yes.
given the fact that the scheme rules are in place, given the fact of the stages of complaint that we go through on our process, and how you feel the integrity has been compromised, that is something that needs to be escalated to that level for them to obviously be able to discuss with you on matters, how to see a resolution, or what
Yes.
part of it, or how to go through that.
Okay, that's fine. You've made me aware of that. Can we talk about time frames? Because as you're aware, we're in August now.
Yes, the time frames.
Yeah.
So the time frames usually for a service complaint to be moved to a stage 1, there's usually a time frame between 6 to 8 weeks for them to obviously get back in touch with you. Now, with the information that I've sent you, it does also give their direct email address that you can still, during the time from me escalating it, you can get in touch with them to perhaps ask for, what's the case of an update, when will I be looking to get in touch. But what I would say is that it's usually between 6 to 8 weeks of getting a response.
Okay, so you had initially have you previously initially escalated this to stage 1, and now we were having conversations to add into that, and is that correct? You have already escalated.
So a stage one, Mr. Hussain, would be parts of the escalation that I've sent out to you. Now, with this matter, from unraveling it and speaking to you, this would have to be put through as a stage 1 from now. But prior to that, I will put on the notes, because there's a stage 0 that's already been led, which me and you have talked about. But because obviously this isn't just small parts of a service complaint, it's at a very high level.
Yes.
It would be put in. But however, I will be putting on the notes on the system, and also what I'll be sending over to the customer experience team, that this is something that we've been discussing over the course of the last month, and it is a case of an urgency to be speaking to.
Okay, all right,
now,
that's fair enough.
as I said to you, I've given you the details. During that time, you can still send, if there's any further information that you would like to add to your service complaints, you can send that with the relevant information.
Okay, so just to recap, you previously put in a service complaint regarding my interaction with Sean Jeffries.
That's the stage 0. Yep.
Yep.
And then obviously now from this part of the complaint, it will be staged at a stage 1.
Okay, and you said stage 1 takes 8 weeks to complete, and then where do you go from? If you're dissatisfied with stage 1, is there a stage 2?
There is further stages. Now, if you look through the service complaint fact sheet that I've sent you, by all means, I can send it again. But it will have all the stages on there, what the processes are, and what can be covered.
Okay, and just would you know offhand how many stages there are?
So for the service complaint, bear with me, I'll tell you the 4 stages for you. Give me a few moments. So there's 4 stages altogether: stage 0, stage 1, stage 2, and a stage 3.
Okay, and how long does he? Because obviously, as you can appreciate, the Ombudsman has made the decision. I need to obviously, I've spent, as I explained, I spent over 22 hours on the telephone call with the Ombudsman right now. I just need to know when the matter is going to be completely finalized with, because obviously I've made provisions for myself in the unlikely event that this should occur. So obviously I need to, because one of the things I need to do is that I made Miss Jeffries aware that I'm making a preemptive subject access request, and obviously I'm just conscious that when something's finalized, so I'm not having to engage with the legal ombudsman, is that at that stage that I'll be making a further subject access request. So I'm just conscious of the fact that when that subject access request for full, complete and comprehensive disclosure needs to take place, I believe it may be preemptive of me to do so at this stage, because for a couple of reasons. First of all, previously on the 11th of May, I made a subject access request which has been complied with, but the whole purpose of that was to follow-up was to determine what the evidence request of the service provider has been. You've informed me today that they have not provided any evidence, so I don't mind waiting until now. There's no urgency of getting the subject access request put in place, but I will need a kind of a time frame of when everything will be completed and finalized, so I can make that subject access request and look to make further decisions about how best to proceed. As it presently stands, we're at this stage where the Ombudsman has rejected or refused to investigate the complaint. I'm obviously, the outcome I'm looking to go through these stages is to have that re-evaluated on grounds that there's been some serious deliberate malevolence taking place, rather than there's just simply being human error or failure that can be corrected without malevolence. So I just need as a guide to know when I can put in the final subject access request.
So if you've already put in, so is that the service access request? Is that for your service complaint that you have with Leo, or for the service for the case? The service access request, once the complaint is completely resolved, that should be available for you, because obviously the case has come to a conclusion, so they can provide that information for you. If it's in regarding the service complaints as well, now I can't give a timescale on how long it would be until you get a complete resolution, because that's on a matter of you agreeing with the resolution, if you see what I mean. So obviously, as I said, you be escalated to a stage 1. If from that stage you are still not happy with the conclusion, and it gets moved to a stage 2, and then obviously the same with there. If you're still expressing that you're still unhappy, the complaint gets escalated to a senior member of staff for a further review.
I see.
Okay. That part. So again, that is down to the outcome of
okay.
the stage 1.
Can I? I mean, obviously, with regards to what I'm looking for my my 20 complaints to be thoroughly investigated and for them to be all upheld. That's what the outcome I'm looking for. At this stage, the Ombudsman has decided not to investigate the 20 complaints. So obviously, that's what I'm looking to have re-evaluated. You've told me that there are 3 stages, 3 levels of stages to complaint at. Once I've exhausted all 3 levels of complaints, is there another external party that I can take the matter to, or does they end there after the third stage complaint?
So at stage 3, if the person is still unhappy, then they can ask for the complaint to be reviewed by an external independent service complaint company. In most cases, an adjudicator will only be able to consider a complaint once the complaint relating to the service provider has been closed. So if you're still unhappy, it can be reviewed you can ask for the complaint to be reviewed, the service complaint that you have within Leo to be reviewed by an external independent.
I see. So thank you for advising me of that. This information was not advised to me by the Ombudsman, and I'm grateful that you've brought that to my attention, because obviously...
But this is regards, just to make sure that you're aware, so I don't want you to get confused, this is regarding your service complaint that you have regarding Leo's service towards yourself. These are the stages that I'm going through. This is not the stage of where I've suggested regarding your case that you have with the service provider. Now, obviously, the outcome's been given. You're appealing that, obviously given the grounds that you put on, which I'm raising a service complaint regarding. Now, with that matter, if at the first point of call on stage 1, they resolve it, say for example they resolve it and then they go through to investigating your complaint again, we can't guarantee that you're going to get all 20 complaints.
Yes.
Going to be
I understand that.
It may be a case that the case may be started again.
Yes.
And it's looked at, but the same outcome comes, as an example.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, these stages that I'm giving you for the case for the service complaint, these are the fact parts of the service complaint that you have regarding Leo's service towards you. So just to make that clear, that these are not the steps for regarding the case that you've had regarding the service provider and what the Ombudsman provided. The stage that I'm escalating is for the service complaint, and with the service complaint, you've advised that your resolution would be that your case would be reinvestigated and your 20 complaints to be looked at and obviously upheld.
Okay.
Now, how long that takes, I can't give you a relative answer because it's all depending on how
Yeah.
So you're on the right track.
Sorry.
So I don't want you to come off here
Yes.
thinking that the stages that I'm giving you
Yes.
referring to your complaint with the service provider.
No.
The stages that I've given you, 0, 1, 2, and 3, are regarding your service complaint
Yes.
with Leo. Now,
Who's
as I said to you, and I'm going over it again.
Who's
if
Leo?
during stage 1, say for example, they say, yeah, fine,
Yes.
we'll reinvestigate it, then it will go through the process of reinvestigation again.
Okay.
Timescales on that, I can't give you, hopefully we'll do it in how long it takes.
Can I ask who Leo is?
I'm sorry, I do apologise. The legal ombudsman. Sorry, the legal ombudsman.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I just got confused because you're saying Leo.
I do apologise.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I
That's
do apologise.
okay. No, not a problem. So this service complaint is regarding the ombudsman's decision, isn't it? So what's the
service complaint is the service complaint that I'm raising is the matters that you've brought up that you feel that the integrity of Leo has been compromised, which has had an impact.
Yes.
Which you believe has had an impact on the outcome of your case complaint that you've had towards your service provider.
Okay.
So for me, that aspect needs to be looked at first before we can even look at reopening the case. Just because obviously your argument is with the fact of that you feel there's been a compromise with the integrity of the impartialness of the case. That's what needs to be investigated.
Okay, all right. Okay. So if I've done that now, just where does that leave you and I? I mean, as far as my understanding would be that our interaction now, because obviously you're the manager of Sean Jeffries, and you're a manager level, you escalated this matter to the stage 1 of the complaints, both in regards to the conduct and behavior of Ms. Jeffries towards in the investigation, and also now from today you're going to escalate the matter that Leo or the legal ombudsman's integrity has been compromised also as a stage 1. Does that mean the fact that it would not be necessary for me to engage with you any further, and I need to engage with the people that are
unless you need to? But what I would say, Mr. Hussain, is that when the matter gets passed over to a customer experience partner, the customer experience specialist, to be looking at your complaint, given the fact that the next point of call is to see what the outcome of your service complaint was, your communication would pretty much be with them.
Yes.
By all means, you can communicate with me, but if it's regarding a case, I would have to go through the stages again at case 0, and then see if I can resolve it at that level. If can't, it would go to stage 0. But again, regarding your service complaint, the communication piece would be between them and yourself. But my lines will be open.
Yes. But I mean, I hopefully would not need to utilize speaking to you again, because I fully exhausted raising my issues or grievances regarding your subordinate, Miss Jeffries.
Level 0.
Yeah.
Stage 0.
That's
so
right.
It would be at stage 1 until the next communication.
Yes.
Potentially would be with a customer experience specialist.
Okay, all right. So, and because I've got no other cases with the legal ombudsman that one of your subordinates is managing. I would not need. I don't think I need to speak to you again. I'm just trying to get that clear that it's unforeseeable for me to engage with you any further.
As I said to you, that if that is the case, and then that you're waiting, by all means. As I said to you, I'm not saying that I'm not going to speak to you again if you send information to me, because that certainly wouldn't be
Yes.
But what I'm saying, for a stage 1 to get more information regarding that would be with a complaint customer.
Yes, I understand. Okay, no, that's fine. The reason I was making those inquiries is I just wanted to take the time to thank you for your patience. I know you had allocated only 2 hours, and we've gone well over the time. You've given me much more of your time in the past. I'm very grateful for you. Obviously, I personally, on a personal level, obviously I found you very personable. Very personable. You've treated me with a dignity and respect, and you've obviously shown.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And you've shown that by obviously going above and beyond, because like I said, you could have not taken this call. You have taken this call. You've gone over the 2 hours. I'm very, very grateful for this. I found the fact that the way that you've spoken to me as well has been very courteous and respectful.
Thank you,
I'm not just gassing you up. I'm just giving you the honest opinion.
You're not. And Mr. Hussain, given the amount of time that we spent speaking to each other, I think, I certainly wouldn't feel that you was blowing smoke, or however you want to term it.
Yeah.
And Listen, for all matters considered, there's been a service provided, you're unhappy with the service, you have a right to complain, you know, given whatever the circumstances are, you're in your right to, if you're dissatisfied with the service, you're in your right to complain. And at that moment, all it's been integral for me is to get to the bottom of what it is that your complaint is, find out what the resolution, if I can't resolve it at a stage 0, which we've clarified, is to escalate that and see what it goes from there. What happens at that time, I can't predict and I can't say, but all I would say is during that time, you know, you're doing the time and space to speak. Yes, time has gone over with phone calls and stuff like that, but, you know, it's never been in my intention to ever feel like, you know, I don't want to speak to him, don't want to deal with him. Because at the end of the day, it's a courtesy. If I was on the other side of the telephone and I was dissatisfied with the service, I would hope that somebody would show me, you know, the time and space to speak. And I hope from what you've mentioned, that's why I'm saying, but, you know, thank you, very grateful for what you said. You know, given the fact that it's on the back of the service complaint, it's good to, you know, very thankful to hear that the time that we spent in discussions have been worthwhile to getting to this stage, Mr. Hussain.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I mean, obviously, I'm very disgruntled and disagreeable with regards to what's happened to me. Obviously, I do believe there is an element of discrimination taking place, and somebody that you've obviously informed me that you equally are, you know, like in a group or network that deals with discrimination. Obviously, it's deplorable when somebody is put into this situation, and I can see that you've empathized with me. I just wanted to speak to you on a personal level rather than a professional level, because obviously on a professional level your conduct has been, you know, very, very satisfactory. On a personal level, you know, you've gonna like shown me that, you know, obviously nothing that you're doing, you're obviously trying to do your best. So I'm just that's what I was trying to express to you, that I'm grateful for the, you know, on a personal level how you've spoken to me and dealt with me. On a professional level you could have taken a very different approach. You didn't do so, because obviously I think you do empathize with my situation. You do understand the fact that having independently, obviously you're compromising what you can say and do, because you're not a free agent right now. You are employed by somebody, namely the legal ombudsman, and you have to represent them. But on a personal level you can understand that, you know, through an element of having got to know me on the telephone, you know, this is my personality. I am very forthright with everybody I deal with, particularly when dealing with the local authority and social workers. And I feel I have been discriminated against simply because I'm an intelligent, articulated person, and I won't allow people to, you know, step over me or my family members, which has now unfortunately or tragically resulted in my mother being, you know, dying under these unique circumstances. And I continue to face this, you know, systemic discrimination from the state, when quite clearly the state of which the legal ombudsman is a part organ of is you know, failing vulnerable people in society. I mean, I've made you aware that I am from Bradford. I'm not sure if you follow what's happening in Bradford, but recently last year the local authority were, you know, found to be at such fault in childcare services, where they've had that role taken away from them simply because of the horrendous cases that they've failed to deal with. And I'm having to deal with adult social care, which does not seem to have the same spotlight. You know, you are not knowing your background, you can empathize how you would go out of your way to help children, which are vulnerable people. You can empathize, maybe you do have children of your own. It's when you're dealing with adult mental health or adult social care, you know, it seems to be a less of a regard for many people, many young people, or many people in the working population, that people are old, maybe they're disabled. There's a stigma attached to it, and as a consequence of that stigma, all right, not enough services is going in place. I am a champion, similar to yourself, in advocating particularly for the disenfranchised and the vulnerable, and as a result of which I've basically been targeted and put into this situation. I have then come to the legal ombudsman hoping that I would get, they would be independent and they would look to review the matter. What they've chosen to do is effectively go on the same, you know, general narrative of everybody else, saying and dismissing my my arguments. And ultimately, when you ask me the question, what am I trying to achieve out of this? All I'm trying to say is that what I'm saying, the complaints that I have are not invalid, they're valid, and I want somebody to independently to validate or verify this. I'm not going to stop. obviously considering that my mother's now been died under these unusual circumstances, and I'm still fighting the good fight. And obviously, I think on a personal level, you can understand. You have a mother too. You would find it quite horrific if the state had, and so on that level, I think we've connected a little. All I just wanted to say is, if this is the last time that we are speaking, I'm grateful for your listening ear, for the time that you've given, and I wish we don't have to speak again, because I want to get this issue resolved with. But on a personal level, I just want to say thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. I really do appreciate that, and it's very nice to hear. And I wish you all the same. If we don't speak again, given these circumstances, on a personal level to yourself, I hope in some way that you can come to a resolution, be that not within just in total to get to where you need to. But on that note, I have made the notes. I've put that forward. Is there anything further that I can help you with at all?
Yes, I mean, obviously, the only thing that I'm looking to do now is to look to disengage from the legal ombudsman, because obviously a decision has been made. I'm going to try my utmost to have that re-evaluated. But obviously, I'm looking to disengage, and once I have disengaged from the legal ombudsman, I'm obviously quite keen to put a subject accident request in for the fullness of the information that you, the legal ombudsman, hold, which will include all the written correspondence that you've reviewed on the telephone call, and include all my telephone calls with the legal ombudsman. I'm just obviously quite keen to get to that goalpost. So that's the only thing that I'm looking to do next. There's nothing else that you can help me with. You've been very helpful and with your time, and generous with your time, and I'm just thanking you, and I would like to say goodbye now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hussain, and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've finished with this. Obviously, he's a very respectful and courteous person. I assumed he came from a ethnic minority background. He's confirmed that. I think he has tried everything. I think he's a genuine guy. He's on the level. He would like to help me. He's made a couple of faux pas in there, which are not malicious. You see, I'm quite happy to forgive people making mistakes or making horrendous mistakes, as long as there's no malevolent intention. I don't think this guy was trying to be malevolent towards me. I don't think he's got a hidden agenda. I don't think he's got some dark, sinister thing. Obviously, he's trying to represent his employers, and he's trying to do that in the best light that he can. Sometimes he's fumbled on a couple of things. I mean, particularly regarding the dates and stuff, which is understandable. Like I said, you can quite clearly see that there is no malice or malicious intention behind his motives. He's simply trying to do a job, trying to do the best as he can. I do believe he does empathize and can sympathize with my situation. However, what can he do? He's obviously doing a job, and so I'm just like I said, I'm quite grateful that he's given me this time. Now, he could have been quite not given me the time and said, look, I'm going to strictly go by the rules. I gave you 2 hours. This is past my work time now. I'm going to end the call, and so on and so forth. He didn't choose to do that. He's chosen to give me the time, listen to me, allow me to fully articulate what I needed to articulate. So I've got nothing personal against him. Similarly with Miss Jeffries, I don't believe Miss Jeffries was acting with malicious intent. She was simply trying to do a job, and I believe that the Ombudsman has directed her to preemptively end this investigation under instructions from above. I do believe that the legal Ombudsman as a whole service have been interfered with, or had their independence interfered with or undermined by the external agencies, namely this same agency that has resulted in my mother dying and influencing the High Court judiciary. So I would be silly to believe that they have not been influenced, and I anticipated that they would have been influenced. Hence why I recorded everything. All right, I recorded all my interactions, and that I'm taking over 22 hours to investigate this matter, to fully thoroughly investigate whether legal ombudsman truly independent, or can their services be purchased like everybody else's. So that's the whole purpose of me taking this time to establish certain key facts, at least for myself, whether they are truly independent. And all evidence seems to suggest that they're not independent. And one of the reasons that you can determine that is because the service provider, Burke Niazi Solicitors, did not comply with the evidence request. That's not such a small thing, that's quite a big thing. If they did not comply with the evidence request, then the only reason that they did not comply with the evidence request is because they knew beforehand the outcome, and they could not have known the outcome if the ombudsman was independent. Evidently, the ombudsman is not independent. The solicitors firm have been told, maybe not by the ombudsman, by this external third party higher force, that don't worry about it. We've got this covered. We will, through our influence on channels, make sure that the legal ombudsman terminate this investigation, and it's whitewashed. And that's what effectively the letter of the ombudsman is doing, is whitewashing my legitimate 20 complaints which have not been investigated but have simply been whitewashed away, for the matter to be closed with, knowing the fact that the solicitors firm had colluded with the local authority and all other professional agencies, including the senior judiciary, to murder my mother preemptively in order to target me as I was looking to expose clear malevolence, fraud, deception, corruption in adult social care here in Bradford. And I'm being victimized and continue to be victimized by all the state authorities in order to prevent this information or prevent my allegations or concerns being highlighted and brought to the public attention, because it then obviously undermines the undermines the credibility of the state apparatus, namely the local authority social services, and as a result of which all of the colluding and conspiring of the various organizations is now being highlighted, would be highlighted in my case. So it was and quite clearly the ombudsman letter did not make any reference to the emails that I'd sent on the 4th of May. On the 4th of May, I'd sent these emails as extra information. After receiving the emails by the Paul McFadden of the legal ombudsman, he then decided to terminate this investigation on under any pretext, and then subsequently that has resulted in Miss Jeffries having to make all these blunders and mistakes and misinformation and deception. And the reason for that is because she had been told to do something that's not within her not the right protocol to follow. Obviously this is a protocol to terminate the investigation preemptively. That's what she's proceeded to do. Then she's obviously contradicted herself and decided to give me misinformation, wrong information, and as a result of which the service provider have not provided the information. Like I said, it's just a whole mess, isn't it? It's a complete and utter mess that they've created. And I once again reiterate what I told this J23 is this, that once you choose to deceive, what a tangled web you weave. What a tangled web you weave when you first look to deceive. And this is a complete tangled web that they've now put themselves into. And I'm having to take up my time and resources in order to have deal with it effectively as I can. So yeah, I think, how long were we on the call for? We were on this call for, I think, over 3 hours. So that's quite a substantial amount of time that I've spent dealing with this case. And this now takes us over 25 hours in total. So that's three and a half hours I've been on this call with the legal ombudsman, which is now going to be escalated further. And there does not seem to be any end in sight. Absolutely ridiculous how much time and resources I'm having to give up in order to rectify a mistake or corruption that's been committed by the legal ombudsman, namely having their services privately commissioned out by the local authority in order to circumvent and whitewash my legitimate allegations of the service provider